Chapter 603. What does this have to do with the war you mentioned? He asked calmly. What does this have to do with the war you mentioned? Don't worry, let me explain. Aizen said with a smile, with your attainments in sage mode, it shouldn't be difficult for you to understand the voice of all things, right? Plants, mountains, rivers, and even dust have their own voice. Seeing the confused look on everyone's face, Aizen smiled and said, you might not understand, but I'll put it another way. Everything has radiation. They can emit electromagnetic waves to the outside world. This radiation is their sound. It's the sound they use to record their own information. This time, everyone was even more confused. Aizen sighed and pointed to Momoshiki, who was watching the show in the distance. Take his previous experience as an example. Every cell has its own life. But what really determines the body's actions is the brain's thoughts, and the parts of the brain that produce consciousness under the mutation. What about this planet? Everything has a voice, just like the cells in the human body. They are the cornerstone of the planet's consciousness, but what really determines the consciousness of the planet is the human race. In the crowd, Orochimaru said, I seem to understand, the consciousness of all things constitutes the consciousness of the planet, but only we can determine the existence of the planet's consciousness. Because we can't produce the same voice, the planet's consciousness can't be born? Aizen nodded slightly, almost. Ichiki rubbed his chin. According to what you said, when these voices come together, the planet's consciousness can be born. Do you intend to use war to kill the world until only you are left? Momoshiki clapped his hands and sneered, it's a pity that such an idea didn't come to our Otsutsuki clan. Aizen shook his head gently, as long as one voice overwhelms the others, it's enough. I couldn't help but ask, is there no war in the shinobi world that could achieve this condition? It should be a matter of scale and degree. Inoki analyzed, no war can spread across the entire world, and no war can affect everyone's heart. When the world's energy is invested in a war, everyone's mind will be worried at the last moment. Orochimaru analyzed. In other words, at the peak of the war, at the moment when fate is at its strongest, the spark of life is ignited. However, I think that the conditions for the birth of a planet's consciousness should not be limited to this, right? War is only the catalyst to achieve this condition, the spark that ignites the fuse. Aizen smiled. The state of the planet itself is also very important. Just like a fetus in a mother's womb, if the mother doesn't have enough nutrition, it won't be able to give birth to life. The state of the planet itself? I was confused and could not help but grumble. Stop beating around the bush and speak clearly. What is the most suitable breeding ground for a planet's consciousness? Aizen snapped his fingers. Immortals, gods, and demons, these three are the mainstream of this world. Most of the people were confused. They already knew that chakra was a foreign system, but when it came to local forces, not many of them knew about it. Aizen continued. Therefore, the final battle should be carried out on the battlefield where these three forces converge. Converge these three forces. Sasuke analyzed. Immortals, you should be eyeing the holy space of the three summoning clans, right? Aizen didn't deny it. As for the demons, one is the great Tensigan on the moon, and the other is your dream world. Naruto's eyes widened. How can the dream world be related to the demons? Powerful great demons are almost immortal. In ancient times, they used sealing methods, but the results were not ideal. However, the aura of the great demon I sensed in the dream world was a different method. It was captured and used as the source of power for the dream world. Aizen smiled. Otherwise, where do you think the power you usually consume in the dream world comes from? Everyone was flabbergasted when they heard this. An undying great fiendish demon sounded very powerful. But what happened? It was directly captured by the leader. If Aizen didn't mention it, they wouldn't even know about it. Niji was speechless. No wonder Sensei knows so much about the demons. It turns out that he captured a greater demon as a slave. Raiga was horrified. Too cruel. It's simply an inhumane black workshop. Aizen continued. As for the gods, we'll use the Pure Land instead. This way, the sage, demons, and God's systems will all be gathered together. These three systems are the hotbeds for the birth of consciousness. It's the environment of the origin of life. Next, the most important thing is nutrition. This nutrition refers to chakra. The huge amount of chakra that can give birth to a planet's consciousness can only be provided by the goddess of chakra, the source of chakra. Finally, in the ultimate realm of the Trinity, the great light will be born. In fact, most of the above were his irresponsible conjectures. He didn't care if the planet's consciousness would be born because of this. But the others didn't know. They only felt that the leader of Hollow's words were unfathomable and terrifying. Big move, really big move. The three holy lands, the two poles of Earth and Moon, and the Pure Land. Such a large structure was just a hotbed. As the source of chakra, the goddess who created the world, Kagaya, was seen as a nutrient. This kind of magnanimity shocked them deeply. If it was in the ignorant era of the past, they might have bowed their heads in worship. After the shock, Anoki asked again. It's indeed a wild imagination. But all of this is just your conjecture. What if the planet's consciousness isn't born in the end? Aizen looked at Garashi. Do you have the same idea as him? Garashi was silent for a moment. If the plan succeeds, the winner can swallow the planet's consciousness and truly control the world's power. If the plan fails, I think your plan is to let the loser become the planet's consciousness and let the winner swallow it, right? To be precise, most of what he said before was nonsense. Only this sentence was his true intention. He did this mainly to raise funds so that everyone would put their power into the gamble. Not only the immortals, demons, and gods, but also the Ichiban, Peach, Rikudo, Hamura, and even Kagaya. In the end, the money of the people would be returned, and he would take all the money of the tycoons. After all, the banker, the dealer, and the gambling table were all his people. How could a few Otsutsuki compete with him? Chapter 604. Aizen nodded. That's more or less it, but the planet's consciousness is vast and powerful. If we're not careful, we can create a god to suppress us. Therefore, we need to make a rule in the ultimate battlefield. The winner can take away the power of the loser. This is the only way to ensure that the final winner can suppress the planet's consciousness and become a true god. Hearing this, everyone somewhat understood his plan. Everything is on the scales of fate. The loser eats the dust, and the winner takes all. It's cruel, but it's also realistic. Since they want to defeat Otsutsuki, they must be prepared to give up everything. If they can't give up anything, they can't change anything. While everyone's mind was in turmoil, Ichiki suddenly clapped his hands and laughed. If I wasn't here, you might have succeeded. Aizen smiled. Oh? Then what can your presence change? Ichiki shrugged. Don't look at me like this. No matter what, I'm still a superior warrior of Jupiter. If I send a message back to my family that there are extremely dangerous rioters on this planet, what do you think will happen? Everyone's heart sank. From the Yura style to the Momo style, and then to the Otsutsuki style, the enemies that appeared were stronger than the previous one. Moreover, from the information conveyed by their words, there were many people on that planet who were stronger than them. If he sent a message back to the clan, they might not be able to deal with the next enemy. However, Aizen just smiled. Go ahead. Ichiki frowned. Do you think I'm joking? Aizen smiled. I know you have some ideas about this planet, but don't worry, just do as you wish. Ichiki's expression became dignified. Could it be that you, without waiting for him to finish, Tao sure cursed with an ugly expression, bastard, the signal is blocked. Aizen smiled. That's bad, the signal in this remote area isn't good. Ichiki's expression changed. How do you know the clan's contact information? Did Kagaya tell you? But he quickly denied this conjecture. No, although that woman is stronger than the average superior warrior, this is top secret information that only superior warriors can know. She's just a junior warrior. Aizen naturally wouldn't say that he knew this secret from Ichiki in a parallel world. You don't need to know. By the way, I've sealed the door. No one is allowed to leave this world until the war is over. Mamoshiki's expression changed again. He pushed open the door and walked in. A moment later, he came out with a dark expression. He set up a barrier on the moon. Even if we use a space jump, we can't cross that distance. Although the barrier can't be broken, Ishur naturally understood what he meant. It would take some time to break the enchantment. If they insisted on breaking the enchantment, they might be sealed before the enchantment was broken. Seeing the two's defeat, they couldn't help sighing with emotion. Of course, the Otsutsuki, Ichikis, Ichiki, Ichiki, Ichikis, Ichiki. Ichiki rubbed his fists and smiled maliciously. Before we fight to the death, shouldn't we clear the battlefield first? Everyone also reacted and looked at Ichiki and Momoshiki with a strange light in their eyes. Fight against outsiders. Fight against outsiders first. Humph. This is an internal matter of the shinobi world, let's get rid of the irrelevant people first. Ichiki's face was cold. Even when he was attacked by Kaguya, he wasn't as angry as he was now. He was threatened by a group of low-level creatures that he could kill with just a breath. What's more hateful is that he can't ignore this threat. They are the weakest of the three, and it's already difficult for them to fight alone. If the first and second join forces, it won't take long for them to be sealed. Ichiki suppressed his anger. You sealed the space in advance. It seems that you have been plotting against us for a long time, but don't be happy too early. Just when he was about to fight to the death, Aizen suddenly laughed. Don't worry, in fact, there is not only a dead end in front of you, there is also a bright future, and even a way to win everything, and that is to participate in our war. Hearing his words, many people were confused. He forced Otsutsuki into a dead end. Wasn't it to eliminate the threat and solve the unexpected factor? Some people's eyes flashed. They had already guessed his thoughts. Ichiki didn't feel happy because of this. He just lowered his eyelids. You said so much just to let us put our strength on the gambling table so that you can win more? Aizen didn't deny it. After all, we are going to counterattack Otsutsuki. The higher the better. You said you are going to counterattack Otsutsuki? Do you expect me to help you? Ichiki's words were full of sarcasm. If you are so loyal, you would have sent a message to the clan for so many years. Aizen laughed. Admit it, you are also coveting the power of this special planet. Ichiki's eyes moved. He was no longer a novice who had just arrived on this planet. He naturally knew how powerful this planet's potential was. Not only did it create a monster like Otsutsuki Kaguya, but even the separated part of her power was no weaker than a high-level warrior. It can be said that this life planet is at least equal to 30 ordinary life planets. No wonder this senior didn't send a message to the clan for so many years. He was worried that someone would steal the chakra fruit he wanted. Thinking of this, Ichiki's heart suddenly became restless. Otsutsuki Kaguya is a low-level warrior, but he ate the chakra fruit of this planet and became so strong. If I was in his place, Ichiki pretended not to see Ichiki's strange look and decisively admitted, I do have an idea, but why would I do something that is hopeless? Sandwiched between you, there is no way I can win. Aizen shook his index finger. Isn't it better to leave later than to be eliminated now? Besides, your shell organization should have a lot of power. It's not impossible to become the final winner. Shell organization. Many of the higher-ups of the Alliance suddenly understood. He really was the leader of another mysterious organization. However, they thought that the threat of the shell organization was higher than Hollow, but now it seems that it was the opposite. Ichiki wanted to say something, but Ichiki was already impatient. Okay, I agree. Ichiki narrowed his eyes and re-examined this junior. He didn't speak. Chapter 605. War, and it's the Shinobi World War. When all of this became a foregone conclusion, most of the people in the Alliance were in a heavy mood. Only those who had experienced the war could understand the cruel reality hidden under the surface of passion and passion. Compared with the worries of the older generation, most of the younger generation are eager to try. They have always lacked a stage to show themselves. They have powerful strength, but they can only move freely in the virtual world. It's inevitable that they will be unwilling to be lonely. Lee was so excited that he hit the air in front of him. Ah. I can feel it, the youth that Kai-sensei said is burning. Shikamaru was sleepy. What? How can I sleep in the future? At this moment, a loud noise suddenly came from the direction of the alliance. Shikamaru woke up in fright. What happened? What happened? As he was talking, he suddenly felt his shoulder sink. Surprisingly, it was Shaoli who jumped onto his shoulder and looked into the distance. Not good, the prison has been attacked. What? The prison was attacked? Hearing this news, Shikamaru didn't bother to pull Lee down. Unlike the narrow prisons in the ninja village era, in order to implement the purpose of reform through labor, prisons in the new era are often built on large projects, so they cover a large area and are not in the center of the alliance. Although they are far away from the alliance, because there is a barrier set by the leader, they don't worry about the prisoners losing control. They didn't expect that someone would dare to attack the prison today. Dare to attack the prison? Is it some mysterious organization? Just when Shikamaru was worried, he suddenly noticed someone's dangerous gaze. He saw Choji rubbing his palms, as if he wanted to jump on his shoulder like Lee. Shikamaru was scared and quickly hid in the chaotic crowd. After the movement spread, the arena, which had been calm, was once again in chaos. Many jonin spontaneously ran in the direction of the prison, but before they ran a few steps, they saw a huge castle flying in the sky in the distance. The shape is beautiful, grand, like the residence of a god. What is that? It's a sky city flying in the sky. Even if they have entered the new era, they couldn't help but be shocked to see this product across the era. Of course, these shocked people didn't include the two from Otsutsuki. Tao Shi's disdainful gaze swept over the crowd. If these natives are so surprised to see a city in the sky, wouldn't they be so shocked if they saw a bastion? Ishir finally regained some sense of superiority. No matter how strong they are, they're just country bumpkins who haven't even left the planet. If they... What the F***ck is this? In his field of vision, thousands of mechas flew out from the edge of the castle and fired light beams at the barrier. In a few breaths, the light shield that enveloped the prison was pierced through. Naturally, they weren't the only ones who were shocked. Everyone in the alliance was shocked speechless. After a long while, Inoki said in a hoarse voice, "That's dust release, and 1,000 people are using it at the same time." Although there were rumors in the Biology Research Institute that they had developed artificial bloodline limits and bloodline elimination were completely different. Most bloodline limits could be defended against, but how could Dust Escape be defended against? He could only dodge. However, the 1,000 Dust Escape's sweeping attacks made it impossible for anyone to dodge. What was even more frightening was that those who used Dust Escape did not seem to be humans, but mecha puppets. This also meant that after these mechas were damaged, they could be quickly replaced. Who does this castle belong to? I hope it's not hollow. As soon as this thought appeared in their minds, they heard Aizen's laughter from the sky. Everyone, are you curious about my palace? Sure enough, it's him. Everyone's heart sank. Even those who thought that the alliance had a great advantage were worried at this moment. They had originally thought that although the hollow was powerful, they were few in number and most likely would be weak in the future. But the sudden appearance of a castle in the sky, 1,000 mechas, and 500,000 white Zetsu soldiers in the prison made them realize that this war would not be as easy as they thought. AI asked. Having dust release and being able to use it are two different things. Tsukikage, dust release should consume a lot of chakra, right? Inoki nodded slightly. Yes, dust release consumes a lot more chakra than ordinary ninjutsu. Even I can only use it 20 times in a row. Raza pondered. Puppets usually use chakra from puppeteers, but no puppeteer can provide chakra to use dust release 1,000 times at the same time. Most likely, they use Grayer or as a power source for these puppets. Empress Shomi I analyzed. Don't forget, the Grayer or vein is in their hands. Ichikushi and Mamashiki were also frowning. Although they can absorb chakra, if the attack is too dense, it is inevitable that there will be some gaps. And for an attack like dust release, once there is a gap, it will be a big problem. Ichiki recalled the time when he fought Aizen. His sword was ignored by Aizen's genjutsu. If that sword was replaced with dust release, in this silent atmosphere, Garashi looked at Aizen and shook his head gently. Isn't it too much to attack the prison? Aizen smiled slightly. Last time, I suffered a big loss at your hands. This time, you should let me get back at you. Hearing the conversation between the two, everyone's morale was low because of Aizen's display of strength. So that guy suffered a big loss at the hands of their leader and came to take revenge? Garashi sighed softly. Did he really suffer a loss? Aizen didn't comment. But aren't you going to stop them? Garashi was silent for a moment. Let them serve for 8 years, that should be enough to offset their sins. However, they are too different from ordinary humans. There is no place for them to survive in this world. It might be a good choice to hand them over to you. Hearing Garashi's words, everyone suddenly understood. No wonder Skynet didn't respond. It turned out that the leader acquiesced to their plan. They didn't object to this result. In fact, they felt a lot more relaxed. After the end of the Fourth Shinobi World War, they were told that some of the white Zetsu were the product of chakra absorbed by the tree world realm. At that time, they rejoiced. Fortunately, there was a hero in this era who saved the world. They also sympathized with the white Zetsu who may have been their ancestors. However, sympathy was one thing. If they were asked to live with those strange creatures, they would never be willing to do so. Therefore, when they heard that Aizen was going to take away the white Zetsu, their first reaction was relief. It was as if the burden on their shoulders was taken away. Ichiki and Momoshiki were a little anxious. Now that the Hollow has an army, what about them? The Hollow has hundreds of people, they can't just let the two of them do everything. Where are their confidants? Chapter 606. After the two organizations left, everyone was still immersed in the shock of today's events. First, it was the world's strongest, but in the blink of an eye, the world's strongest was trampled under someone's feet, then the appearance of the two mysterious organizations, and the declaration of the Fifth Shinobi World War. This series of unforeseen events was really too much to handle. People with a slightly weaker ability to accept things are starting to doubt the reality. At this time, A suddenly said. Leader, don't talk about your resignation. Raza instantly became alert. Something is wrong, shouldn't this be his line? But before he could speak, Minato nodded and said. I agree with Raikage's opinion. Garashi hesitated for a moment. Why do you have such an idea? A said in a deep voice. Whether it's me, Minato, or anyone else, we don't have the power to unite people's hearts. Only with you in this position can you make everyone believe in you and make everyone feel at ease. Empress Shomi, I nodded. If we talk to strong enemies like Aizen and Otsutsuki Kazushi, it will only make us a laughingstock and let them laugh at us. Everyone nodded in agreement. Although Aizen and Kazushi appeared to be very elegant, this is respect for the strong people of the same level. If they were to talk to them, they might not even be able to enter the door. The other party could easily make them look bad. Garashi opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Raikage continued. I know what you want to say, you want to resign after the war, right? But have you ever thought that after the war, we will enter the interstellar era? According to them, the laws of the interstellar era are crueler than those on the planet. Without a strong leader, without power, even if we enter the interstellar era, we will only be treated as aborigines and be slaughtered. Anoki also said. I understand your thoughts, you want to let go and let everyone grow, but this world needs God, it is too fragile to withstand a storm. Raza said loudly. Just like you did before, continue to protect this world. Listening to them, the surrounding people also became restless. Rai-sama, please don't refuse anymore. Only if you continue to be the leader, this ship will not lose its way. Not only because of what Garashi had done for this world, but also because of what they had experienced today. In front of such starry sky forces, only the leader could speak to them as equals. Without a leader, this world was just an ordinary indigenous planet. Garashi took a deep breath under everyone's expectant and fanatical gazes. Since everyone has said so much, I will not be pretentious. I will sit in this position until I lead everyone to the peak of starry sky. At this moment, his soul began to boil like boiling water. He was receiving everyone's blessings. Under the catalysis of external pressure, those thoughts became purer and more fanatical. If it weren't for the half of the Hangyu that had purified his faith, he would have suspected that he would have been blessed and pregnant, like Huey. The crowd didn't know what he was going through, so they just cheered wildly. Seeing such a fanatical scene, A sighed in his heart. Fortunately, he didn't persist in that unrealistic fantasy. Otherwise, he would have been asking for humiliation. In fact, this is also good. I should have changed to a more realistic goal long ago. After untying the knot in his heart, he suddenly felt that even his bones were relaxed. He couldn't help but learn from those young people and shouted in a rough voice. Rai-sama, I want to give birth to a monkey for you. The four Kages next to him trembled in fear and looked at him in disbelief. They didn't expect him to be such a rakage. Killer Bee was even more horrified. He knew that his brother had always wanted to be the leader. Today, he suddenly changed his mind. Could it be? Thinking that his brother was still single at this age, Killer Bee couldn't help but worry. I have to help my brother find a female talent. Wait, I seem to be single too. As if witnessing a milestone, everyone walked out of the arena with their heads held high. While walking, they talked about what they saw today. In the crowd, Naruto asked longingly. Will we enter the Star Age in the future? It's still early. Sasuke shook his head slightly. Let's solve the threat of those two organizations first. Miji said with a dignified face. They're not easy to deal with. Hollow has Otsutsuki Tonari, Shell has Otsutsuki Momoshiki, and we have no one in the second tier who can fight against them. They couldn't even defeat Momoshiki and Tonari before they transformed, let alone the two who ate the chakra fruit. Hearing him say this, Naruto and Sasuke inexplicably missed Big Naruto and Big Sasuke's cheats. If they had Rikudo Sennin's cheats, they could help Sensei. Sigh, did the Rikudo Sennin of this time and space oversleep? Naruto sighed. Sasuke also sighed faintly. Is it because we're too strong that he doesn't want to lend us his power? Miji was confused. What Rikudo Sennin? What did you two do behind my back? At this moment, the three received a message at the same time. Sensei asked us to go to his office. Miji looked up and asked, you also received the message, right? Naruto and Sasuke nodded together. Sensei said that he has something good for us. The smile on Miji's face froze, and he carefully read the message twice. In the end, he was convinced that Sensei didn't mention anything good in the message. Miji was depressed. It must be because I lost the first round and embarrassed Sensei. At this moment, in Garashi's office, he returned the truth-seeking ball carried by his main body to Rikudo, who had just woken up, and said apologetically, I'm sorry. The truth-seeking ball I brought to the parallel world was eaten by the enemy. Eaten? Rikudo's eyes widened slightly, but he quickly calmed down. To be able to eat my truth-seeking ball, the enemy must not be underestimated. Was it Mother or Ichibi? It was Otsutsuki Ichibi. Then, Garashi told him about his experience in the parallel world. At first, Rikudo was calm, but the more he listened, the more shocked he became. In the end, he couldn't help but ask, Otsutsuki Ichibi died? And it's the kind of death where even the soul origin is sacrificed. That was a high-level warrior of Otsutsuki, the pinnacle existence in the boundless starry sky. Even Rikudo had to be wary of him. Yet, he died just like that, and he was eaten clean. Garashi took out half of the Hogyoku. His soul is inside. Rikudo looked at the half of the Hogyoku in amazement, and then sighed. The younger generation is really formidable. Aizen's heart is too big, so big that even I am afraid of him. Fortunately, you turned the tide. Chapter 607. Hearing this, Garashi smiled bitterly. He is indeed ambitious. Six Paths was shocked. After he returned to this world, Did he do something amazing? Garashi sighed. Nothing big. He is just preparing to gather all the power to give birth to the consciousness of the planet. Six Paths was confused. What is the consciousness of the planet? Then, Shueisha recounted what had happened that day. After listening, Six Paths had an expression of, I don't understand, but I am shocked. He stroked his beard and said, since Ichibi did not deny it, it seems that the consciousness of the planet does exist. If his guess is correct, he may be able to obtain the power to defeat Otsutsuki. In his opinion, if he could integrate the power of the planet, his power would be undeniably strong. It would be easy for Otsutsuki to destroy the creatures on the surface of the planet. Even creating or destroying a planet like the moon would not be too difficult for him. But if he wanted to destroy the planet under his feet with brute force, even a high-level warrior like Ichibi would not be able to do it. It was obvious that the overall power of the planet was far above Otsutsuki. Garashi nodded slightly. I think so too. There is no such thing as guarding against a thief for 1,000 days. Instead of being afraid all the time, it is better to fight hard and gain the power to fight back against Otsutsuki. Fight back against Otsutsuki. Six Paths' face showed a look of longing and shock. Even he had never thought of fighting back against Otsutsuki. At this moment, when he heard Garashi and Aizen express their ambition to defeat Otsutsuki, he couldn't help but sigh that he was indeed old. This era belongs to them after all. I just need to give them a push from behind. Six Paths sighed and laughed. How can I not participate in such a big battle? Shushi was overjoyed. That's great. With the addition of you, the immortal of the Six Paths, our chances of winning are much higher. However, Six Paths shook his head slightly. I am just a follower. Since I have joined the alliance, I should call you leader. How can that be? Without waiting for Garashi to finish, Rikudo changed the topic. You said that Aizen occupied the moon, and he had a subordinate who had the Tensigen and could summon the Grand Tensigen, right? As expected, Garashi's attention was diverted. Yes, his name is Tonari Otsutsuki. Six Paths sighed. Hamura's consciousness is lodged in the Grand Reincarnated Eye. Sometimes he is awake, sometimes he is confused. Since they can control the Grand Reincarnated Eye, it means that Hamura is controlled by them. In other words, my participation can only offset the enemy's hidden strength. Garashi was shocked. I didn't expect Aizen to be hiding his strength. The Six Dao nodded with emotion. I thought that the first form and the home family would be our biggest enemies. I didn't expect that when I woke up, they would become the weakest party. The two of them actually lost because of their prejudice. They confused our world with other planets. It's inevitable that they misjudged. Garashi analyzed. However, it's time for them to throw away their arrogant thoughts. As long as they correct their mentality, with Otsutsuki's background, their threat can't be underestimated. Rikudo agreed. Yes, at this moment, there was a knock on the door. Come in. The three of them pushed the door open and saw their sensei talking to an old man floating in the air. Naruto and Sasuke's eyes lit up. Here comes the cheat. Six Paths, who was about to introduce himself, froze. Why does the reincarnation of Indra Chakra in this era feel strange? Is there something wrong with his eyes? These three are my disciples, Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke, and Hyuga Neji. Garashi introduced them to each other. As for this one, he is the first ancestor of Shinobi, the god of Shinobi, Six Paths Sennin. Six Paths Sennin. The three of them were very shocked. Six Paths kindly twirled his beard. That's all in the past. Now, I'm just a subordinate of your sensei. Subordinate? Naruto and the other two were really shocked this time. The first ancestor of all shinobi in myths and legends, Six Paths Sennin actually claimed to be their sensei's subordinate. Although they guessed that their sensei's strength might be stronger than Six Paths Sennin, the various identities of Six Paths Sennin were too significant. More than 10 years ago, when Pain of the Akatsuki first appeared, just because he had the same eyes as Six Paths and Nin, he made the shinobi world feel like they were facing a great enemy. It can be seen how great the influence of Six Paths and Nin on the shinobi world was. The three of them were shocked and couldn't help but feel proud. Even the legendary Six Paths and Nin was their sensei's subordinate. Garashi waved his hand again and again. Six Paths and Nin is too modest. You should be. Without waiting for him to finish, Six Paths interrupted him. This old man is not modest. I did make a small contribution to the world, but in terms of leadership, my ability is not good. I can't mediate family affairs, and even let family affairs run through the Millennium War. This is my fault. Naruto grabbed his hair. Grandpa, can you speak like a normal person? I mean, can you speak like us? Six Paths' mouth twitched slightly. The mood he had brewed was interrupted. He couldn't help but sigh. I can't even deal with family affairs properly, let alone govern the country. This world does need a god, but that god is neither me, nor mother, nor Otsutsuki, but your sensei. The three of them nodded deeply. They had heard about the root of the dispute between Senju and Uchiha. This Six Paths Senin's ability to govern the family was really not good. They still needed their sensei to save the world. Garashi shook his head slightly and didn't say anything. He immediately looked at the three and said, I called you here today because I have a task for you. The three of them suddenly became excited and didn't ask what the task was. We will do it, Garashi said seriously. Previously, in the Grand Arena, Aizen showed his desire for the three great Sage Holy Lands. I suspect that he will make a move on the Sage Holy Lands in the near future. You three inform the three great Sage Holy Lands and let them be vigilant. If necessary, abandon the Holy Lands and move to the real world. The three of them nodded in unison, indicating that they understood. Sage Holy Lands. Six Paths' eyes showed a nostalgic look. Todamaru is now old. Todamaru? Naruto wondered. Is there a toad with this name in Mount Mayaboku? Six Paths laughed. It's the great sage toad you speak of. With that said, Six Paths seem to have made a big decision. You may encounter enemies in the Holy Lands this time. Let me give you a gift. Chapter 608. Rikudo shook his head slightly. In fact, this gift isn't very suitable. But for the current situation, there's no better choice. Naruto asked. What gift? Rikudo smiled. Haste. Naruto's tone was low. Don't tell me it's to teach us how to farm. Rikudo shook his head helplessly. I'm the one who gave you the power to forcibly raise your strength in a short period of time. If the situation wasn't tense, I wouldn't want to use this method. If you don't want to, yes, of course. Naruto hurriedly said. By the way, after we're forcibly raised, can we fight Tonari and Momoshiki? This. Rikudo was hesitant. I haven't seen them fight. According to Garashi, they ate a chakra fruit. Their strength is most likely above my power. But it's not absolute. You have the chakra of my two sons. After stimulating your potential, you may be able to fight against them. That's enough. As long as we can fight back. Naruto was full of confidence. He had seen Momoshiki's fighting skills in the convention. It was a mess. If it weren't for the other side's strength, he wouldn't have lost. Although Tonari was much better than Momoshiki, his combat experience was still slightly lacking compared to them. Sasuke and Neji were also excited. Great. Next time we meet them, we'll return the humiliation we suffered in the convention. Seeing the three cheering, Rikudo awkwardly interrupted them. Ahem, Naruto and Sasuke are okay, but Neji, you're not the reincarnation of my two sons' chakra. You may not be able to bear my power. The smile on Neji's face suddenly froze, but he suddenly realized that Sensei had predicted this scene long ago. Rikudo also felt a little embarrassed and hurriedly remedied. I have a palm leaf fan that can release the 5 attributes of fire, water, thunder, wind, and earth at once. Under normal circumstances, it requires a lot of chakra, but after my modification, it can be activated with a small amount of chakra. I'll give it to you as a gift. With that, he took out a red and white fan from the void and handed it to Niji. Is this a ninja tool? And it's an extremely rare ninja tool. Tian will like it, right? Thinking of his wife who had a habit of collecting ninja tools, Niji muttered in his heart and asked embarrassedly, 6 paths, Sama, can I give this away? 6 paths understood that the banana fan wouldn't increase Ningji's strength by much, so he didn't reject it. Since I'm giving it to you, it's yours. Make your own decision. Thank you, Lord Samsara. Ningji was happy and worried at the same time. Would Tian be so happy that she would want to reward him tonight? Garashi said in a timely manner, how about this? I'll teach you the god summoning technique later. You can borrow my power when you're in danger. Naruto and Sasuke understood that this should be their sensei's way of compensating Niji. After all, both of them were cheaters. Ningji was touched. His teacher didn't blame him at all. At this time, Sasuke hesitantly raised his hand. Sensei, I may need to find someone to cooperate with me. His dojutsu needed someone to cooperate with him to maximize its effect. The last battle had already proven that all snakes were unreliable. If he wanted to defeat the enemy, he needed a reliable helper. Garashi nodded slightly. I happen to have the same idea. You can stimulate your potential at 6 paths, Sama's place. I'll equip each of you with an assistant. Assistant. The 3 of them looked forward to it. Who would it be? After the 3 left, 2 more people came to Garashi's office. Leader. Looking at the 2 who were so respectful, Garashi pretended to be angry. Are you estranged from me? Rin smiled playfully. Etiquette can't be abolished. Don't worry about it in private. Garashi smiled helplessly. Kakashi, Rin, sit down. Rin sat down gracefully, but Kakashi was very reserved, only daring to sit in the front half of the sofa. Don't be shy. Just sit down. Kakashi smiled awkwardly. It's okay. I'm fine sitting like this. He didn't have Naruto's vitality. Naruto recovered in a day or 2, but his back still hurt. Shushi quickly understood. He laughed and said, why didn't you tell me that you haven't recovered yet? Let me give you a hand. Of course, no need. A burst of green light sprinkled on Kakashi's body, making him almost moan out of comfort. At the same time, the 2 of them swallowed back their words. Garashi looked back and forth between the 2 with a strange look. It seems that I did something unnecessary. Do you need me to reverse your state? Kakashi laughed awkwardly. Forget it. Although he felt a little regretful, he didn't want to experience the pain of broken chrysanthemum again. Garashi felt a little funny. I didn't expect that in the end, it was Naruto who helped them. But, with their current state, isn't it too cruel to take them to visit someone? It's killing them. In this awkward atmosphere, Rin took the initiative to change the topic and asked. Senpai, why did you call us here today? Garashi abandoned the distracting thoughts and said seriously. Haven't you been looking for a chance to reduce bordered soil sentence? Rin and Kakashi didn't care about the awkwardness at this moment and nodded repeatedly. Do you have a way? Garashi clenched his hands and supported his chin. Now that we've entered the stage of a full-scale war, any combat power is an extremely precious resource. I intend to let him redeem himself. I'll take you to visit him. Great. The 2 cheered. Then let's go now. Garashi snapped his fingers, and the 3 of them were instantly transferred from the office to the prison. Amazing. Although Rin knew how powerful Senpai was, she couldn't help but sigh. Looking at the empty prison, Kakashi asked. Senpai, Aizen sent people to attack the prison. Didn't he take them away? Garashi shook his head. It's a tacit understanding between me and him. He only took the white setsu. Oh. The three of them walked around the prison, and soon they saw three people working hard to move bricks in the labor camp. Bordered Soil, Nagato, and Yahiko. Seeing the Akatsuki's triumvirate fall to the state of the prison, the three of them felt a little emotional. Bordered Soil. Hearing the familiar voice, the brick in Bordered Soil's hand fell to the ground. Is that you? Rin. Seeing Bordered Soil's eyes staring at Rin as if attracted by a magnet, Kakashi coughed once, twice, thrice, until he coughed 6 or 7 times in a row. Bordered Soil looked at him impatiently. Which idiot? Huh, Kakashi, senpai, you're here too. Chapter 609. Kakashi said angrily, I'm really grateful that you can still see us. Bordered Soil laughed, how could I not see you? On the side, Nagato and Yahiko came over with a complicated expression. You should be here today because of the prison riot, right? Can you tell us what happened? Bordered Soil nodded again and looked at Rin with concern. Was the village attacked? Rin, are you injured? Rin shook her head slightly. Senpai is here, everyone is safe. Kakashi added, although Akatsuki attacked the prison, they didn't dare to go too far. Akatsuki? The three were confused, and when they were about to continue asking, Garashi interrupted. The shinobi world is currently facing the threat of the 5th Shinobi World War. It's a waste to keep powerful people like you in prison. If you are willing, I can temporarily release you on the condition of commuting your sentence. Bordered Soil didn't need to say much, and he agreed without thinking. Nagato and Yahiko looked at each other. We also agree. They were grateful to Garashi for letting go of Conan, so they didn't refuse. However, Garashi said calmly, don't agree too early, there is one thing I must tell you. One of the enemies you will have to deal with after you go out is your old friend. Nagato asked in surprise, did someone rebuild the Akatsuki? Is it Conan or Uncle Aizen? It's Aizen. However, instead of rebuilding, it's better to say it's incorporation. Kakashi explained with a dignified expression, the Akatsuki's power only occupies a small part of Akatsuki. Yahiko was surprised. Onigaki and Sasori are already very powerful, aren't they ranked in Akatsuki? That's not necessary. I'll tell you this. Kakashi tried to organize his words. The Alliance recently held a World's Ninja Tournament. All the powerful ninjas except Senpai participated, but the title of World's #1 was taken away by a teenager. That teenager is Aizen's subordinate. Rin added, the strength of the top 4 is not weaker than Madara and Naruto. Hearing them say this, the three of them were greatly shocked. If there was a gap in the Alliance's strength and someone took the crown, they could understand. However, the strength of the top 4 was not weaker than First Hokage and Madara. For an outsider to take away the title of #1 in the world, it could only mean that this person was terrifyingly strong. But such a powerhouse was only a subordinate of Aizen. It was terrifying. Nagato sighed with emotion, as expected of Uncle. If he was the leader of Akatsuki, perhaps things wouldn't be like this now. Bordered Soil took a deep breath. I knew that Aizen wasn't simple, but I didn't expect him to be so abnormal. Yahiko frowned. He naturally didn't want to confront Uncle Aizen, so he asked again, you just said that Akatsuki is only one of the parties. Are there other enemies? Garashi nodded slightly. There is a force called the Shell Organization. The three of them were stunned again. How come there is another Shell Organization? It's reasonable to say that the Alliance should be the dominant force in the outside world. In this case, it should be difficult for such an organization to grow. How come the mysterious organization is more powerful than them? Moreover, since the Alliance is treating them seriously, it means that the strength of this Shell Organization is above that of the Akatsuki. Bordered Soil considered his words and asked, what is this Shell Organization? Kakashi explained according to Garashi, you should have heard of the legend of 6 Paths Sennin saving the world, right? This matter is true. 6 Paths Sennin saved the world from his mother's hands. 6 Paths Sennin's mother came from an extremely terrifying force in the depths of the starry sky, the Otsutsuki family. This family has very few people, but each member has the strength to suppress a planet. Six Paths Sennin's mother is a low-level warrior of the Otsutsuki family, and the leader of the Shell organization is a high-level warrior of the Otsutsuki family who brought her to our planet 1,000 years ago. This series of information made the three of them feel like their brains were about to crash. What Otsutsuki? What Shell organization? Why does it sound so fake? Nagato asked in a dry voice, is what you said true? Of course it's true. Kakashi nodded, you can ask anyone after you go out and you will know. Bordered Soil took a deep breath, I understand, the biggest threat the Alliance is facing now is the Shell organization, right? Nagato asked, do they want to destroy the world again? Yahiko's eyes were solemn, you want us to contact Uncle Aizen after we go out and fight against the Shell organization together? However, after the three of them were shocked, they found Kakashi and Lin looking at them with a smile. Bordered Soil didn't understand, why are you looking at me like that? Kakashi laughed, I'm just lamenting that you have been out of touch with the world for too long. The Shell organization is indeed powerful, but among the three forces of the Alliance, Shell organization, and Shell organization, they are actually the weakest. Lin nodded, if it weren't for the Shell organization's leader wanting to keep them alive, they would have been sealed by now. The three of them were shocked again, what kind of development is this? Bordered Soil couldn't understand, didn't you say that Otsutsuki is a powerful force from the depths of the starry sky, and that he can suppress a planet by himself? Yes. Lin nodded, but Senpai and Aizen can easily do this kind of thing. The three of them looked at Garashi in disbelief, unable to connect this handsome and gentle man in front of them with the god who suppressed a planet. Yahiko was in a trance, could it be that hundreds of years have passed in the outside world? Of course not, it's just that 8 years have passed. Kakashi said, his confidence waning. Senpai has the power to manipulate time. Perhaps he has secretly accelerated it? Seeing Kakashi looking at him, Garashi naturally understood what he was thinking, shook his head and said, using time acceleration to fight is fine, but using it for cultivation? You think too highly of me. Time acceleration? Yahiko was dumbfounded. Not only time acceleration, but also time rewind. Lin recalled with lingering fear, 3 years ago, a guy named Otsutsuki attacked the Alliance and killed many of us. In the end, it was Senpai who used time rewind to resurrect everyone. Hearing this, the three of them were completely stunned. Suppressing a planet, manipulating time, this is the domain of the gods, right? Just as the three of them were in a daze, an old man suddenly appeared in front of them with a dignified expression, Leader, the moon has suddenly disappeared, and the outside world is now in chaos. Garashi pondered for a moment, the moon has disappeared? Immortal, please calm everyone down first, I will come later. Okay. After Rikudo left, the five of them looked over in shock. Yahiko stammered, what did you call him? And, what did he call you? Chapter 610. Garashi said without hesitation, Six Paths and Nin, what's the problem? Nagato asked with a little dizziness, then why did he call you leader? Garashi said calmly, Sennin also joined the Alliance, is it strange for him to call me leader? Of course it's strange. Everyone shouted in their hearts. That's Six Paths and Nin, the legendary hero who saved the world and created ninja sect. It's already very shocking for such a character to come from legend to reality, not to mention that he also regarded himself as Garashi's subordinate. This kind of impact is simply explosive. Even Kakashi asked dizzily, Six Paths and Nin joined the Alliance? When did this happen? Garashi laughed, just before I came to find you. Rin was the first to react and said excitedly, with Six Paths and Nin joining, our chances of winning are even greater. Nagato gently stroked the Rinnegan that once shocked the ninja world with the name of Six Paths and Nin, and couldn't help but smile bitterly, you are already so strong, even Six Paths and Nin is your subordinate, what else do you need our help with? Don't belittle yourself. Although you can't be regarded as the strongest in the ninja world, you are not bad. Garashi comforted, besides, what I need is your experience. Experience? Yahiko was a little surprised, but he quickly reacted, the young people in the Alliance? But you actually want us dangerous people to guide the young ninja. Aren't you afraid that we will instill dangerous ideas in them? Garashi laughed. What they lack is experience, but they don't lack faith. Bordered Soil nodded with deep emotion. Those who follow Senpai will not lack faith. Bordered Soil's heart was filled with emotion. If it weren't for the accident midway, he might have become Senpai's most loyal fan. Of course, except for the conflict with Rin. Yahiko nodded. Well, we agree. When will we meet the newcomer you said? Seeing Yahiko agreed so readily, Garashi was a little embarrassed. This mission, I intend to let Nagato and Bordered Soil guide. As for Yahiko, well, you can do some ordinary work. Ordinary work? Yahiko seemed to be humiliated. You know, I am the leader of the Akatsuki. But your strength, Yahiko stared at him. Didn't you say that strength is not important? What's important is our experience. Garashi said strength is not important, but the premise is you have the ability to protect yourself. Yahiko's facial muscles twitched wildly. Don't I even have the ability to protect myself? Garashi sighed. Indeed. To be fair, Yahiko's strength is definitely not bad, but this mission is a cheat. Bordered Soil has space ability, Nagato has Rinnegan, not to mention the others, whether it is the strengthened Naruto, Sasuke, or Momoshiki, Tonari, they are not something ordinary Kage level can deal with. The era of ordinary Kage level is the ceiling of the ninja world, it has long passed. Yahiko looked like he was hit, and waved his hand dispiritedly. I understand, ordinary people like me can only do ordinary work. Garashi unlocked the seal on the three. Let's go, I still have things to deal with in the outside world. After saying that, Shushi teleported everyone out. At this moment, the outside world was still in panic. Although the moon is not as important as the sun, the sudden disappearance caused a huge chain reaction. What's going on? Where is the moon? Is it the end of the world? Hearing the voice in their ears, Bordered Soil and the other two felt like they were in another world. The 6 people appeared in front of the central building, and naturally, they were quickly noticed by others. A group of high-level officials who were in charge of the pacification work gathered around and reported. Leader, the astronomy department lost all observation of the moon. Leader, there is someone who claims to be Rikudo Sennin. Leader, the dream world is shaking chaotically, suspected of being attacked by unknown forces. Shushi raised his hands and gestured for everyone to calm down. Calm down, everyone. It'll be over soon. Hearing Garashi say this, everyone seemed to have found their backbone and suddenly relaxed. At this time, they noticed a few more people behind Garashi. Huh? It's them. Although everyone was surprised, no one asked questions. Since the leader did this, he must have his reasons. Therefore, they quickly focused their attention on Garashi. Seeing this, Yahiko, who was thinking of a way to greet them, was surprised again. They don't have any doubts about the 3 of us being released from prison. Is Garashi's prestige so high in their hearts? At this time, a voice came from the side. Leader, do you need me to create a new moon? Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. Who was this unreliable? Did you create the moon? However, Garashi asked, creating a new moon, will it be a big burden on you, immortal? Immortal? Everyone looked at the person and their mouths were wide open. Wasn't this the old man who called himself Rikudo Sennin? Was he really Rikudo Sennin? Rikudo Sennin thought seriously for a moment. Although the moon is just a subsidiary product that I used to seal my mother, I am not the same as before. Creating a new moon will take a lot of effort. Garashi shook his head slightly. Then there is no need to go through so much trouble. I will just go to space and move a smaller satellite. After that, Garashi teleported into space. The 3 who had just been released from prison were dumbfounded. Was this how the big bosses communicated? If he didn't create a new moon, he would move it. This was too cruel. No wonder he didn't even put a seal on us. Yahiko smiled bitterly. At first, he thought that after Shushi had unsealed them, he hadn't even left behind a small seal to prevent them from rioting. He had forgotten to do so in a hurry. But now it seemed that it was completely unnecessary. At this time, Minato looked at the sky with some confusion. Didn't Momoshiki say that Aizen placed a barrier in the sky to prevent people from flying too far away? Rikudo Sennin shook his head slightly. I don't feel any barrier. AI's expression changed. Did something happen to Hollow? Or did Hollow and Shell cooperate? Minato pondered. Momoshiki said that the core of Aizen's barrier was the moon. Now that the moon has disappeared, it makes sense that the barrier is ineffective. I just don't know if Otsutsuki's too will take advantage of this opportunity to escape. A trace of worry appeared on Rikudo's face. He wasn't worried about whether Otsutsuki's group would escape or not. The universe was vast and boundless. Even Otsutsuki's travel time was measured in years. By the time Otsutsuki returned with reinforcements, the dust would have settled. What he was worried about was his mother, who was sealed on the moon. Chapter 6:11. Just as everyone was talking, a bright moon reappeared in the sky. Compared with appeasement and explanation, the moon's reappearance was undoubtedly more calming. When the moon reappeared, the panic in people's hearts quickly dissipated. A group of high-level officials had to sigh. Although this method was simple and crude, it was indeed effective. Unfortunately, they couldn't learn it. The next moment, Garashi reappeared in front of everyone. Minato hurriedly reported the discussion just now. Garashi murmured, the enchantment in the sky did fail with the disappearance of the moon. However, we don't know whether it's the Hollow or the Hollow Shell organization. But it doesn't matter, as long as you do your job well, it's okay. Hearing Garashi's words, everyone was no longer worried. In addition to Garashi's own prestige, the news of Rikudo Sennin joining was also an important reason. How could the combination of the leader and Rikudo lose? After the crowd dispersed, Garashi summoned Nagato, Naruto, and Rikudo Sennin to the room. The two sides looked at each other and perceived the chakra in their bodies. Nagato was surprised. The amount of chakra they have is almost no less than mine, especially the yellow-haired boy. He's even stronger than me. Naruto asked curiously. Sensei, are they the assistants you chose for us? Yahiko stood up expressionlessly. I'm just an ordinary person doing ordinary work, these two are your assistants. Sasuke asked. What about the other one? Niji wailed in his heart. Was he forgotten again? Don't worry, there's another one here. Shushi tapped lightly in the void, and space rippled. A ghost with explosive hair appeared in front of everyone. Didn't I say, don't bother me? Madara shouted irritably, and his eyes suddenly focused on Rikudo. You are, Garashi took the initiative to introduce, this is Rikudo Sennin, the source of Senju and Uchiha's bloodline. Rikudo Sennin. Madara's pupils shrank violently for a moment, but he quickly recovered his calmness. Just a so-so. Tell me, what do you want from me? Garashi said, I want you to be my disciple's training guide. Madara's face was not good. You want me to be a nanny for these kids? As a nanny? You're not wrong. Garashi chuckled. However, your main task is to guide them. When it comes to fighting, you may not be a match for my disciples. Banban's face was frosty. The three of them were the last three people in the boring exam 3 years ago, right? Although you have some strength, how can you compare to me? Nagato sighed. We are all people who have been eliminated by the times. It's good enough that they still remember us. What's the era? Madara said disdainfully. Decades after the death of Hashirama and I, it's still our era. Bordered Soil still hated the fact that Madara deceived him. He sneered with the knowledge he just learned. Do you know what a shell organization of Hollow is? Do you know what Otsutsuki is? Madara frowned. Do I need to know this? Then let me tell you. Bordered Soil proudly showed off the knowledge that just shocked him. Soon, Madara joined the ranks of the stunned. What? I may not even be in the top 10 of the ninja world. What? Chakra was brought by Otsutsuki? What? Otsutsuki is the god of creation, but ordinary Otsutsuki can only be a subordinate of the two major forces. There are two Otsutsuki's shell is the weakest organization. If it weren't for the sage of the six paths himself, Madara would have thought that these people united to deceive him. In just 8 years, how did the world become so strange? 8 years ago, he was the one who forced the ninja world to unite against his final boss. However, if he were to do this again 8 years later, there would be no need for Qingshui Shushi to make a move. Any force would be able to beat him to the ground. The psychological gap is too big. Fortunately, after all, Madara is not an ordinary person. He quickly calmed down and asked, "Is it possible to see those people in this mission?" Garashi nodded slightly. "Yes." "Well, I'll take this mission." Madara's eyes were fierce. "I'd like to see how powerful the strong people of this era are," Garashi said. Sasuke and Madara are in one group, Naruto and Nagato are in the other group, and Niji-bordered soil is in the other group. Do you have any objections? No. Well, get ready to go after stimulating your potential. At the same time, in the city of the sky, Aizen looked at the two people in front of him with a smile. "You dare to appear in front of me after stealing the moon? Do you think I dare not kill you?" Tonari and the rest of the 10 blades stood aside with cold faces, ready to fight at any time. Ichibi calmly put his finger on his right eye. "I shrank the moon and sucked it into this eye." Everyone was shocked. They knew that Ichibi had the ability to shrink and enlarge, but they didn't expect that his ability was so powerful that he could put the moon in his eye. "If I'm scared by you and accidentally crush the moon and release Otsutsuki Kagaya, it won't be good for anyone," Aizen said. "I didn't expect that the powerful Otsutsuki would fall to the point of using a low-level warrior to threaten others," Ichibi said indifferently. "Although it's embarrassing, I don't deny the fact that she's stronger than me now." Aizen tapped his fingertips on the table. "Tell me, what do you want?" Momoshiki rushed to answer. "We want an army." "An army?" Aizen raised his eyebrows. "You want me to give you a part of the White Setsu army?" "Of course, we won't rob you," Ichibi answered with a smile. "We want the souls of the underworld." "The underworld?" Aizen laughed. "So, you want the 6 paths Sennin?" Ichibi said calmly. "The underworld is one of the 3 ultimate lands you mentioned, and it can provide us with an army. Of course, it's the best choice." Aizen closed his eyes and didn't speak. Momoshiki said anxiously, "You don't need to deal with the 6 paths. You just need to help us block the possible appearance of Shimizu Garashi." Ichibi added, "Whether Shimizu Garashi appears or not, I will return the Grand Tensigen to you." Aizen didn't deny it. He smiled and said, "Otsutsuki's power resides in the Grand Tensigen. I thought you would swallow him." The corners of their mouths twitched. If Naruto's chakra in Rasengan was food mixed with feces, then Otsutsuki in the Grand Tensigen was food mixed with feces. They wouldn't swallow Otsutsuki if they didn't want to live. Seeing their dark faces, Aizen didn't want to waste more time on them and said lazily, "Okay, I agree." Chapter 612. After leaving Sky City, Momoshiki asked Ichiki. He agreed so readily. Could it be a trap? He had a very bad impression of the people on this planet. In just a few days, the people on this planet had left a very deep impression on him. Hiding feces in chakra, using very obscene taijutsu to attack the weak parts, it was simply a group of unruly people. Now, they had stolen the moon of these unruly people. The other side shouldn't be so silent. Most likely, they were brewing some evil plan. Ichiki rubbed his chin. It should be that he saw that we have a way out, and at the same time, he was reluctant to give up our strength, so he was so easy to talk to. Humph, these inferior creatures actually treat us as resources, how hateful. Momoshiki clenched his fist. If it weren't for the lack of time, I really want to call people from the clan to let these inferior creatures see our strength. Ichiki's voice was low. If their plan succeeds, maybe 10 or 20 people won't be their opponents, and this is the reason why we stayed here. Momoshiki nodded with a dignified expression. Even us superior warriors only use inferior warriors as sacrifices when presiding over the sacred tree's sacrifice, and most superior warriors have only presided over 1 or 2 sacred trees' sacrifices. But what about the sacrifices on the altar in this war? Tonari Otsutsuki, Kagaya's family, this is already not weaker than the chakra, and even far surpasses the superior warriors, not to mention, there is also Shimizu Garashi and Sosuke Aizen, these 2 monsters, and the huge energy accumulated by this strange planet for thousands of years. When these forces are gathered in one person, it is even possible to give birth to the legendary Otsutsuki god. In order to not let them threaten the existence of the mother planet, the Otsutsuki god must be born between the 2 of us. Hearing Momoshiki's words, Ichiki narrowed his eyes. Yes, I think so too. Momoshiki looked at him with sincere eyes. Actually, we now have a sure-win method. Ichiki asked in a deep voice, what method? Momoshiki's eyes were burning. Both of us are superior warriors, and the chakra fruit that we bear is bound to be incomparably powerful. As long as one of us is willing to sacrifice ourselves, the other can instantly surpass those 2 inferior creatures. The corner of Ichiki's eyes twitched wildly. He had left the main family for so many years and only dared to have the idea of Otsutsuki Tonari. But this guy was good. He had only been here for a few days and he had already released his nature. Ishur nodded. I'm stronger than you. Why don't you sacrifice yourself? Tao Shur sighed. Under normal circumstances, I should be the sacrificial offering. But senior, your body has been destroyed. Even if you replace the vessel with a wedge, it will still be the body of an inferior creature. It will be difficult for you to exert your full strength. For the sake of the clan, why don't you sacrifice yourself, senior? I will keep your wedge and exchange it for Otsutsuki's body. Well, that Otsutsuki Tonari is very good. Ichiki's eyes became dangerous. Enough. You're still young. You won't be able to handle such a dangerous situation. Really? That's truly a pity. Tao Shur said regretfully. This guy knows that my body is weak and can't bear the power of 2 Otsutsuki. That's why he is so fearless. Ichiki thought to himself. Fortunately, he doesn't know that I have already prepared a vessel. Well, I must hold the ceremony as soon as possible. However, the same conversation in Tao Shur's view was, Ichiki proposed the idea of combining the 2 into one, and then laughed and said that he would soon change the vessel. The old guy is hinting that if I hand over chakra now, he can still leave me a wedge and give me a chance to start over. If I wait for him to complete the ceremony, he will seize my power by himself. No, I have to sneak attack him while he is holding the ceremony. Both of them had their own ulterior motives. After looking at each other, they laughed and turned their heads, and then began to talk again. Tao Shur said, Senior, I think that the group of people from Hollow may be unreliable in attacking the underworld. Ichiki nodded slightly. Yes, those despicable inferior creatures can't be completely trusted. We have to find other external forces. Tao Shur suggested, Senior, what do you think of those aboriginals who call themselves gods, demons, and immortals? Ichiki's mouth twitched slightly. Oh, this joke isn't funny. In the past, it was me and Kagaya who drove them out of this land. Tao Shur shook his finger. Senior, destruction doesn't only breed hatred, it also breeds fear. Maybe they saw the power of Otsutsuki, so they followed us wholeheartedly. After all, the starry sky is much brighter than a planet. Ichiki was silent for a moment, and then he laughed. Then I'll leave this matter to you. 2 days later, Mount Mayaboku. This is the place where Jiraiya, sensei used to train? Nagato looked around and asked. Isn't Garashi a contractor of Shikatsu Forest? Why did you, as a disciple, contract with Mount Mayaboku? It's too small, too small. Naruto shook his head. For sensei, contracting with a holy land is not important. Nagato asked again. The relationship between the 3 holy lands shouldn't be considered harmonious. Why would they agree to such a contract? What's wrong with that? Wasn't Jiraiya-sama like this in the past? Naruto said indifferently. However, Sasuke encountered some trouble when he was learning senjutsu. Nagato was surprised. That boy also learned senjutsu? Naruto waved his hand. Only very shallow senjutsu. That guy's talent in senjutsu is not good, so he only learned a little. However, I suspect that he felt ashamed of losing to me in senjutsu, so he deliberately didn't learn it. Nagato was quite amused and immediately asked. What's the trouble you just said? Naruto sighed. The sensei of the Ryuchi cave said that Sasuke's desire for power wasn't strong enough. He said that he would wait until his heart was fanatical and his desire for power grew to a certain extent before teaching him senjutsu. Nagato asked with interest. How did it end? Later, Sensei went to the Ryuchi cave, and... Naruto shrugged innocently. That's it. Nagato's mouth twitched, and he instantly understood that the sensei of the Ryuchi cave was scared. However, he could understand the mentality of the Ryuchi cave sensei. If it was in the past, even the god of ninjas like Hashirama might not be able to make them retreat. After all, the three holy lands have been passed down for thousands of years, and their hidden power can be described as unfathomable. But Garashi was too strong, so strong that the holy lands of another dimension didn't dare to resist. Nagato sighed in his heart. This is the result of not paying attention to current affairs. If those sensei were well informed, they wouldn't dare to provoke him. Chapter 613. Croak. 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 Before the two reached the center of Mount Myaboku, they heard frogs croaking. There were huge lotus leaves, giant insects, and giant toads everywhere. It was as if they suddenly came from the world of small people to the kingdom of giants. As a person who practiced senjutsu in Mount Myaboku, Naruto was quickly recognized by some small toads. It's Naruto. Naruto is back. Hearing these voices, Nagato was a little surprised. I didn't expect you to be so popular. Naruto laughed with his hands on his waist. I'm the Frog Prince of Mount Myaboku. Speaking of which, Jiraiya-sama plans to use the Frog Prince gimmick as the protagonist of his next book. Nagato's eyes were strange. But I heard that Jiraiya-sensei's books aren't very healthy. Naruto waved his hand and said. Impossible. How can a book about frogs have color? At this time, Toad Yoshi jumped down from a lotus leaf above. Naruto, Fukasaku-sama asked me to take you there. Huh? Grandpa-sensei already knows we're here? Naruto was surprised. Toad Yoshi rolled his eyes. Fukasaku-sama isn't great Toad-sensei. His hearing isn't bad. Under Toad Yoshi's lead, the two came to a quaint temple. Fukasaku-sama and Great Toad-sensei are inside. I won't go in. After that, Toad Yoshi skipped away. Naruto touched his head. What? There's no beginning or end. Nagato looked up at the temple. This trip is easier than I thought. As long as there's no problem inside. What problem can there be? Isn't everything fine outside? Naruto said and walked into the temple. Nagato didn't say much and just followed behind him. Walking through the spacious courtyard, the two came to a huge disc. Great Toad-sensei, wearing a doctor's hat on his head, was lying on the disc with half-closed eyes. Fukasaku-sensei, Shima-sensei, and Toad Shin stood on both sides. Naruto, you're finally here. The Great Toad Sage looked weak, making people worried that he would die in the next moment. Naruto's eyes lit up. Great Toad Sennin, did you predict my arrival? The Great Toad Immortal nodded with difficulty. His eyes were wide open, and his turbid eyes were filled with hesitation. I also prophesied that the earth would shatter, the sea would flow backwards, the sky would split open, and the entire world would be destroyed. Naruto clenched his fists. It must be those Otsutsuki again. However, the Great Toad Sage slowly shook his head, No, the one who caused all of this is not an outsider but a person who has been placed on the altar. His name is Clearwater Rinse. Naruto's eyes widened. Great Toad Sannin, are you having Alzheimer's again? The Great Toad Sage's turbid eyes lit up. No, the guidance of fate has never been clearer than now. His soul has been corrupted by the demons. He will become the funeral of the world. The only one who can save this world is you, child of prophecy Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto lowered his head and didn't speak. Seeing Naruto fall into silence, Fukasaku Sannin said, although the Great Toad Sage is often muddle-headed, this time it doesn't seem to be a joke. Shima Sannin persuaded, the leader of the real world may have been accidentally corrupted by some evil force, and the only one who can save him is you. Toad screamed, could it be that Otsutsuki from 3 years ago? I heard that after the leader sealed him, there was no follow-up. Maybe the seal was broken, and Otsutsuki's power leaked out. The Great Toad Sage continued, Naruto, I know you have doubts now, but don't worry, go bring the scroll that sealed Otsutsuki, we will solve your confusion. Nagato looked at them coldly, thinking to himself, these guys are very strange, but they don't seem to be controlled. Without evidence, I may not be able to persuade Naruto. Should I take him away by force? Just as he was secretly observing the surroundings and preparing to break through, Naruto suddenly raised his head and asked with dissatisfaction, do I look like a fool? Fukasaku Sannin froze for a moment. Naruto, why do you think so? Naruto said to himself, since your goal is the Otsutsuki Urashiki, then the people behind you are the 2 Otsutsuki, right? Speaking of this, the surrounding air suddenly froze, and the temperature plummeted. The Great Toad Sage suddenly let out a sneer that didn't match his appearance, as expected of that man's disciple. When did you see through this Sennin's disguise? Naruto scratched his head. Actually, I didn't see through it. Your changes are really amazing. However, every time Great Toad Sage sees me, he habitually pretends to have amnesia, but you recognized me from the beginning. Great Toad Sage's eyes widened. Just because of this? He imitated the old toad's voice, demeanor, and movements exactly the same, but because it was too normal, he didn't imitate the old toad's neurotic nature. Nagato glanced sideways, thinking, this guy looks simple and honest, but I didn't expect him to be so smart. Since you saw through it, then I won't pretend anymore. Great Toad Sage turned back into Snake Sage's appearance and stared at Naruto fiercely. It's a pity that you're still too young. If you pretended to agree and waited until you returned to the real world to ask for help, maybe I'll really be in trouble. Now, you want to turn the world upside down with just you 2 little brats? Amidst a group of gloomy laughter, the 2 Sannin and Toadkin turned into Snake Princess of the Ryochi Cave. This is indeed not safe enough, but I don't want to wait any longer. I want to ask the whereabouts of Great Toad Sage from you. And, I also want to know how strong I am now. Naruto said, wearing a golden trench coat, his eyes turned into the shape of a cross, and 9 black balls appeared behind him, exuding a terrifying aura. Snake Sage's pupils suddenly shrank, and he blurted out, truth-seeking ball. How is that possible? He had experienced the ancient war, so he naturally wasn't unfamiliar with the truth-seeking ball. Although the 3 snake princesses' knowledge wasn't as extensive as the old ancestors, they could hear from the old ancestors' words that he was afraid of the black balls. Naruto stretched his right hand behind his back, and a truth-seeking ball turned into a black stick in his hand. If you're afraid, quickly hand over Great Toad Sage and the others. Snake Sage snorted coldly. Although the truth-seeking ball is powerful, in the eyes of Sannin, it's just a powerful ninjutsu. It's still too early for me to admit defeat. Chapter 614. With White Snake Sennin scream, the temple suddenly turned into a gloomy purgatory. Countless ghosts floated out from the corners and rushed towards the 2. Genjutsu or something? Naruto was surprised and quickly opened the truth-seeking ball in front of him. However, these ghosts directly passed through the truth-seeking ball. Not only do they have no physical body, but they don't even have chakra. Naruto frowned slightly. It was the first time he encountered this form of attack. Just as he was about to temporarily retreat and prioritize collecting information, Nagato said, "Let me do it." Summon, Prison Yama. After quickly forming hand seals, a gate of hell with the word King written above was summoned. It opened its bloody mouth and sucked in all the flying ghosts. This guy is really reliable. I can't fall behind. Naruto raised his right hand high, and a truth-seeking ball flew into his palm, and then quickly spiraled. Rikudo Sennin, Raisin Shuriken. Like a black hole, the shuriken quickly formed, and then Naruto threw it out. Sensing the terrifying aura contained in the shuriken, White Snake Sennin's heart trembled. Run! At first, the three snake concubines didn't think much of the truth-seeking jade because it was easily penetrated by the spirit. However, when they heard the White Snake Immortal's panicked voice, they all panicked and hurriedly flew out. Tanshin Shinheim and Ishigashima-heim were slightly luckier and escaped. But Suzuheim was a step slower and was touched by the eruption of the black substance. As if the lines on a picture book were erased by an eraser, they disappeared in an instant. At the same time, the temple was directly erased from the root. Seeing this, Tion Xian Shinji and Ichikajima-heim both let out a terrified scream. It's too scary. The temple was destroyed, and the big toads outside naturally noticed the movement here. A toad with a large pipe in its mouth jumped over, and its tone was very unhappy. Why did the Ryuchi Cave Sennin appear in Mount Mayaboku? Naruto, what the hell is going on? Naruto quickly explained. The Great Toad Sennin in the temple was disguised by them. The real Great Toad Sennin and Sennin Grandpa were taken by them. What? Wen Tai's rage instantly exploded. They actually allowed the stinky snakes of the Dragon Ground Cave to kidnap a few immortals right under their noses. This was simply a great humiliation. Kill them and we'll have snake soup today. The rest of the toads also shouted with righteous indignation, eat snake soup. Eat snake soup. Nagato reminded, the strength of the three holy lands should be about the same. Even if the snake restrains the toad, it's impossible for them to defeat the immortals of Mount Mayaboku without making any noise. They must have helpers. The White Snake Immortal hissed as it flicked its tongue. You little rascal, your thoughts are quite clear. Old fogies, come out. As soon as he finished speaking, the ground beneath the temple trembled. A gigantic wild boar that was several times larger than Wentai but completely rotten charged out from the ground. In the sky, a three-headed eagle flew down. There was also a monster with a normal human body, but its entire body was black and white, as if its bones were exposed. Naruto asked curiously. Are these also summoned beasts? Summoned beasts? The wild boar laughed loudly. White Snake, it seems that your days in this world aren't easy. You're actually enslaved as beasts. They're just my descendants. The White Snake Immortal emphasized, dissatisfied. Not enslaved. We sincerely treat the summoned beasts as friends and partners. Naruto corrected loudly. For some reason, when Naruto said this, he inexplicably thought of all snakes in the parallel world. This time, the wild boar really noticed Naruto and was shocked. Oh Otsutsuki? Look carefully. He's just a human who received a gift from Otsutsuki. The White Snake Immortal said. No wonder Otsutsuki released us. It turns out that there's a conflict between them. The wild boar nodded, then looked at Naruto fiercely. Its voice was like thunder. Little rascal, listen to me. The stupid bird next to me and I are both great demons. The three-headed eagle, who was combing its feathers, suddenly struck the wild boar with a thunderbolt and screamed. Idiot wild boar, who are you calling a stupid bird? The wild boar shook its body indifferently and groaned. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have been caught back then, demons. Naruto suddenly realized. He had been cramming a lot of knowledge in the past few days and knew that there were many demon seals on this land. For example, Sensei was said to have encountered two demons. One was a demon that came out of the box of bliss during the Third World War, and the other was a demon that was imprisoned in the dream world. Thinking about it, it's reasonable for him to encounter two demons. What about the skeleton? Is he also a demon? The skeleton opened its eyes, full of madness. I am the evil god of the end. Sinner, you have an unclean and evil aura, evil god. I seem to have heard this name somewhere. But where is it? Naruto thought hard, and finally, an idea flashed through his mind. By the way, Wang Fijuan-senpai. Naruto suddenly realized, and then reacted. Gods seem to be able to receive the prayers of believers. This guy is so irritable. Is it because Fijuan-senpai prays to him every day for the will of fire? Thinking of this, Naruto said tentatively. Where the leaves fly, the evil god, who was blabbering on, replied reflexively, fire also grows endlessly. Naruto applauded hard. Full score. Full score for the understanding of the will of fire. Sensing the strange eyes next to him, evil god couldn't hold it anymore. Blasphemer, you are sinking in despair and fear. This voice seemed to have a terrifying magic power. Except for a few toads, all the big toads around him went berserk. Kill. 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 The eyes of these toads turned blood red, and they roared unconsciously and killed each other. Fortunately, toads like the Bunta brothers who had weapons suitable for their size were few. Without fangs and claws, no matter how fierce the fight was, it was difficult to be in danger in a short time. Naruto was also affected by this chaotic power, but he woke up in an instant. Huh? Why am I okay? Naruto touched his body. You have the power of Old Man Rikudo. Of course, these guys who have been eliminated by time won't work on you. Kyubi said in his consciousness space. But I heard from Sensei that Aizen's Genjutsu is so strong because of the power of the gods. Naruto said, puzzled. Kyubi was silent for a moment, and then he roared. We're fighting. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Go. If you don't know, then you don't know. Why are you being so fierce? Naruto complained in his heart, rushed forward, and kicked the so-called evil god away. Chapter 615. Even though it was just a normal kick, with the help of the 6 paths of reincarnation, he could easily crush a mountain with a single kick. Naturally, evil god was no exception, and he was directly kicked. Gamabunta laughed. Good kick. However, the White Snake Immortal and the other 2 fiendish demons also laughed loudly. Good kick. Gamabunta was shocked and quickly paid attention to the surroundings. He saw that the big toads didn't change at all, and they were still roaring like crazy. Be careful, that guy isn't dead yet. In the next moment, the exploded flesh and blood gathered together and reformed the appearance of evil god. Then he stared at Naruto and chanted. Karma payback. Boom. Like an ordinary person being hit by a bullet, blood suddenly splashed out from Naruto's chest. My attack was condensed to a point and returned. Naruto was surprised. Although this injury can be healed in an instant, it's still very scary. With his current strength, he was still injured. Heitan-senpai seems to be able to do something similar, but he needs blood as a medium. This guy can do it without a medium, as expected of evil god. Naruto thought to himself. However, if it's just the same attack on me, as long as I don't take the initiative to attack him, it shouldn't be a big problem. The reason why he was injured was entirely because his attack was too strong. If the opponent stupidly stabbed him like Heitan-senpai, even if he stabbed him to death, he wouldn't be hurt. Thinking of this, Naruto took the initiative to rush in the direction of the wild boar demon. The wild boar demon's body was rotten, and its stench was almost comparable to a poisonous fog. Even the big toads who had lost their minds didn't want to get close to it. If it wasn't for Snake Sage's Genjutsu, this guy should have been discovered as soon as he entered Mount Mayaboku. Naruto thought so, raised his hand and shot a super large Dao-seeking Raisin Shuriken at the wild boar demon. To everyone's surprise, the wild boar demon didn't dodge, but took the initiative to meet it. The Dao-seeking Raisin Shuriken exploded, like a black hole swallowing everything around it. Although the wild boar demon was tough, it didn't have much resistance in the face of this level of power, and half of its body was instantly erased. However, it was countless times bigger than the dead snake princess, and this injury couldn't make it sleep forever. With only the front half of its body left, Zhu Jinxiang roared loudly with red eyes. Pretending to be a ghost, get to work. What could it be? Naruto suddenly had an ominous premonition. The evil god danced for a while as if he had gone mad, and then shouted, "Damage, transfer." In the next moment, an invisible force fell on Naruto out of thin air. This time, his injuries weren't as simple as just spilling blood. His entire body was spewing out blood, and his aura instantly dropped. Seeing this, Nagato, who had been fighting fiercely with the White Snake Immortal, and the three Wentai brothers, who were fighting the three-headed eagle, subconsciously held back their attacks. Under such circumstances, they really couldn't attack with all their might. What if the enemy reflected the damage? On the other side, the demonic wild boar, whose body had been mostly destroyed, was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. It yelled in dissatisfaction, "Half of my body was destroyed, how could that little brat only spit out so little blood? Evil god, did you take my bribe?" Even the sometimes chaotic evil god couldn't help but roar when he heard this. "This brat has the power of Otsutsuki, and you think I don't lose any damage when I transfer damage?" That being said, the frogs' hearts continued to sink. The demon beast's regenerative abilities and the evil god's ability to transfer damage were simply unfathomable. Even if the damage they transferred to others was not as effective as the damage they received, it was still very troublesome. These demons had high defense and health, and regenerated quickly. The power that could completely kill them could also be reflected back to Naruto. In other words, to defeat the demons, they first had to defeat the evil god. But the problem was that the evil god's efficiency of reflecting damage to oneself was higher. What if the evil god didn't die, but directly reflected them to death? Moreover, if the evil god could transfer damage, what if the demons could help him share the damage? Besides, they had the help of the White Snake Immortal. No wonder even Otsutsuki could only seal them. Nagato exclaimed in his heart and asked, "Do you know sealing jutsu?" Sealing? Bunta looked down at his frog claws, and black lines appeared on his forehead. "What do you think?" "It seems that I can only use my Chibaku Tensei." Nagato sighed. He had never sealed anyone with Chibaku Tensei, so it was inevitable that he was a little lacking in confidence. At this time, Naruto barely stabilized his injury. "Let me do it," Bunta said in a deep voice. "Naruto, your jutsu is too powerful. It's best not to use it. It's not an offensive ninjutsu, but..." Naruto quickly formed hand seals, multiple shadow clone jutsu. Thousands of Naruto appeared around him. Then, Naruto all over the mountain chanted at the same time, "Where the leaves fly," as if hundreds of thousands of mosquitoes were buzzing in his ears. The evil god held his head and roared, "Stop chanting, stop chanting." Ah! Seeing this, Bunta was shocked. It turns out that the will of fire really works. The White Snake Immortal was also dumbfounded. The will of fire was so terrifying. However, he quickly reacted. "Sound?" The White Snake Immortal sneered and pointed at the evil god. "Hearing stripping." The next moment, the evil god's face showed a happy childlike smile. "So comfortable." The immortal and the two demons also laughed. "Let's see what you can do now." Naruto's heart hardened. He used the kamikaze jutsu taught by his sensei on the evil god and prayed madly to the evil god. However, his prayers were all about the will of fire. Unlike the previous sound harassment, this prayer could be said to hit the soul directly. Thousands of voices chanting the will of fire surged in the soul, and the evil god directly foamed at the mouth. Then, the toads who fell into madness woke up. Everyone was stunned. The most troublesome evil god was defeated just like that? The White Snake Immortal noticed the key point. Hurry up and destroy his clones. He can't interfere with the evil god alone. The wild boar demon and three-headed eagle reacted. The former rushed forward and instantly trampled a dozen of Naruto's clones to death, while the latter blew the surrounding clones away. Naruto's clones weren't weak, but the problem was that his injuries weren't completely healed when he made the clones. The clones were also in a weakened state. Not to mention, the Great Demon and White Snake Immortal were extremely strong. Protect Naruto. Nagato and the big toads quickly stepped forward to stop them. If it was just to protect Naruto's body, it was naturally easy. But with thousands of clones, it was inevitable that there would be flaws in their protection. In just 10 seconds, more than 100 of Naruto's clones were destroyed, and the evil god state seemed to be stabilized a lot. Just when everyone was anxious, an arrogant voice mixed with a little bit of annoyance came. Naruto, you don't seem to be able to do it. Chapter 6:16. The voice continued to clamor. Trapped by these beasts, it's a disgrace to us. Naruto knew who the voice was as soon as he heard it, and said unconvinced. Sasuke, these guys are very powerful. Powerful? They won't be for long. Sasuke didn't say much and directly activated his Mangekyo. First self-mutilation, then heaven and earth. Instantly, the wild boar demon felt a sense of weakness that it had never felt before, causing it to fall to the ground. Boom! Like a falling mountain, the wild boar demon's huge body smashed a huge hole in the ground. Heh, one down. Before Sasuke could finish his words, he saw Wild Boar shaking his body and standing up, groaning. Kid, what do you want to say? This vitality, are you kidding me? Sasuke's eyes twitched. This was equivalent to pulling the Wild Boar demon's HP below 20%, but the Wild Boar demon recovered it in a few breaths. Sasuke didn't believe it and tried again on Three-Headed Eagle and White Snake Sage. Three-Headed Eagle's recovery speed was also terrifying. Because of its relatively small size, it recovered faster than the Wild Boar demon. As for White Snake Sage, it used snakeskin jutsu to refresh its status. Seeing this scene, Sasuke was a little depressed. His magnificent entrance, other than crippling himself, none of the sage, demons were fine. Didn't this make him seem retarded? But soon, Sasuke understood the crux of the problem. His dojutsu's strength was that it weakened both his body and chakra. But these demons didn't have chakra at all. The only one with chakra, White Snake Sage, was chakra senjutsu, which was fundamentally different from him. Their physical weakness naturally didn't affect them much. While Sasuke was secretly depressed, the two demons and one sage were also vigilant. Losing 80% of his HP for no apparent reason was already extremely terrifying. Madara crossed his arms and sneered. This is your ability? Isn't it a little ridiculous? Sasuke was a little embarrassed. If you have time to watch a joke, why don't you take the initiative to attack? Well, I'll let you see how I fight. Madara instantly transformed into the complete body Susanoo and waved his sword at the wild boar. The wild boar relied on its thick skin and thick flesh. It was not afraid of Madara's attack and directly used its head to attack. Boom! One person and one boar were similar in size, but the result was that Susanoo slightly shook, and the boar's huge body was forced to retreat a few steps, and blood flowed from its head. However, this injury didn't make it retreat at all. Instead, it stimulated the fierceness in its heart, and it hit Madara with red eyes. This time, Madara abandoned the sword and directly strangled the boar's neck with his hands, and slammed it to the ground with a shoulder throw. On the other side, Nagato kept using Shinra Tensei and Chibaku Tensei to stall for time. The strength of the two snake girls in the Ryuchi cave was similar to that of Fukasaku Sennin, and they were far from being his match. However, the White Snake Sage was different. Its strength was above Nagato's. If not for the fact that it was not used to the environment of Mount Myaboku, Nagato would have been defeated long ago. As for the Three-Headed Eagle, it was stronger than the three Bunta brothers, but because of the addition of other toads, the battle was barely balanced. These demons are weaker than Madara. After discovering this, Sasuke was even more depressed. After being strengthened by Rikudo Sennin, his strength was even above Madara. If he fought steadily, he would have already controlled the overall situation. But the problem was, as soon as he came in, he saw Naruto being beaten, and his breath was weak, so he mistakenly thought that the enemy was very powerful, and subconsciously used his divine skill, which led to this embarrassing situation. It's all Naruto's fault. But, I'm about to recover my strength. At this moment, Naruto, who had been praying devoutly, suddenly shouted, I sense that the great toad sage is among the stone frogs in the spring. What? The old man and the others were petrified? Bunta was shocked. It should be a special trick. Naruto guessed. As the demon wild boar took the beating, it turned its head back in shock and anger. White Snake, why didn't you kill those toads? However, White Snake's Sannin was more irritable than it. You think I didn't want to? Killing it can't hide from those little ones outside. The three-headed eagle screamed. Then kill all those little toads. What are you afraid of? White Snake Sannin calmed down. That old toad prophesied too much. Its body is weak, and it can't exert much strength. No, you should be afraid, because I've recovered. Sasuke felt that he could do it again. He transformed into full-body Susanoo, enlarged his Kusanagi sword, and stabbed at White Snake. Noticing Sasuke's attack, White Snake Sennin's eyes were cold. Oh, so it's that little devil. Of course, it didn't forget the humiliation it suffered when facing that man. It couldn't defeat Shimizu Garashi, but it couldn't defeat Shimizu Garashi's disciple. Thinking of this, White Snake Sannin decisively abandoned Nagato and controlled the earth to flip over. Sannin, Fuji reincarnation. Sasuke staggered and fell directly to the ground. Oh, you can't even control your body, and you still say. White Snake Sannin sneered. Suddenly, it found that the giant in its sight disappeared. Before it could react, Susanoo's huge body pressed it under the ground. White Snake Sannin was crushed into a meat patty, and it escaped by digging a hole in the ground with a small white snake. Sasuke stood up and humiliatingly stepped on the meat patty a few times. White Snake Sannin, that's it. White Snake Sannin, who came out of the ground, was much weaker. It looked at Sasuke and gritted its teeth. What's there to be proud of? Isn't it just a powerful substitution jutsu? Sasuke retorted. Then, aren't you, who was almost crushed to death by the substitution jutsu, useless? White Snake Sannin said coldly. Humph. If it were someone else, I might have no way to deal with this kind of space ability. But, who told you to be the contractor of the Ryochi cave? Sasuke instinctively had an ominous premonition. What do you want to do? Before he finished his words, Sasuke disappeared instantly. Naruto was shocked. Where did such a big Sasuke go? Nagato's mouth twitched slightly. It's reverse summoning jutsu. He was summoned back to the Ryochi cave. Naruto understood. White Snake Sannin was the ancestor of the Ryochi cave. It had the power to control most snake summoning beasts. Even if it wasn't in the Ryochi cave, it could use its bloodline power to make the snake summoning beasts in the Ryochi cave use reverse summoning jutsu on Sasuke. Thinking of this, Naruto muttered. But Sasuke has Flying Thunder God and Heavenly Hand Force. He should be able to come back soon, right? Sure enough, Sasuke returned to his original place in the next moment. However, before he could finish a word, Jutsu used reverse summoning jutsu again. Next, Sasuke was like a faulty TV screen, flashing and disappearing from time to time. After a few cycles, he finally didn't come back. Chapter 617. Naruto sighed. He really didn't expect that Sasuke would leave in such a way. So, what else did Sasuke do after he came on the field except to suppress White Snake Sage? He can't do anything, but he's the best at acting cool. Sure enough, I have to save the situation. After recovering, Naruto let the clone continue to consume Evil God's energy, while he stood up and threw a Raisin Shuriken at the wild boar. After all, his truth-seeking ball can't be regenerated. Although he can replenish it with Hagoromo Sennin, it's not good to waste it. Moreover, he already tested that the truth-seeking ball can't kill the wild boar in seconds. Coupled with the wild boar's amazing recovery speed, he had to use the raisin shuriken first. Why does everyone attack me first? The wild boar was depressed. Without evil god's cooperation, it naturally didn't want to take the hit and subconsciously wanted to avoid it. However, Naruto teleported in front of it and kicked it directly into the path of the raisin shuriken. The wild boar demon screamed in pain and opened its bloody mouth to bite Naruto. Naruto didn't dodge. Enduring the stench, he stood on the wild boar's lower teeth, put his hands on the teeth, and then lifted it. With a click, the wild boar's mouth was dislocated and couldn't be closed. Seeing this, the three-headed eagle hurried over to help. The three heads opened their long sharp beaks, and the three forces of thunder, flame, and poison were brewing in their mouths. You can use attribute attacks without chakra? Naruto was a little surprised, and then stretched out his 9 tails excitedly behind him. Then let's see who has more power. Before coming here, he borrowed some power from the other 8 bijou according to Hagoromo Sennin's instructions. On the 9 orange tails, the raisin shuriken containing the 9 bijou's power was ready to launch. The three-headed eagle's 6 eyes widened. How can this guy's power be so complicated? Isn't he afraid of explosion? Boom! The power of the 2 sides collided violently in the void. Naruto's raisin shuriken swallowed the three-headed eagle's attack with overwhelming advantage, and then hit the three-headed eagle without slowing down. In the next moment, a scorched bird fell from the sky. But soon, a brand new three-headed bird was born from the charred body. Sure enough, these demons are too hard to kill. Naruto sighed in his heart, but he wasn't impatient. With his participation, the situation had been reversed. Even though he was maintaining the strength of his doppelganger, he was not at a disadvantage against the 2 of them. In fact, he was even suppressing them. Madara and Nagato joined forces, and in just a few seconds, the white snake sage shed its skin 4 times. Its current body was like a small snake that had just hatched from an egg. It was as if a gentle poke could pierce through its skin. Let's not talk about those 2 thick-skinned fellows, but if I continue like this, I'll become a dead snake. The white snake immortal lamented in its heart. At this moment, a spatial door opened in the void, and an extremely powerful repulsive force erupted from it. Caught off guard, all the living beings in the fierce battle were sent flying. In the next moment, a pale-skinned youth with an elegant demeanor walked out of the spatial door. It's you, Tonari Otsutsuki. Naruto shouted excitedly. After all, he still remembered Hayashi's request. Otsutsuki. 1 sage and 2 demons looked at Tonari with some vigilance. Nagato, who noticed this detail, was secretly surprised. They don't seem to know him. So, is it really the Shell organization behind them? But why did the Shell organization suddenly appear? Without giving them too much time to think, Tonari looked at the white snake sage and said, I'm here to help Otsutsuki Momoshiki take you away. Naruto shouted angrily, you actually cooperated with the Shell organization. I was wrong about you. Tonari shook his head calmly. This is just part of the deal. Besides, what does your opinion have to do with us? Naruto clenched his fist. Humph. I won't let you take them away. Tonari joked. You don't seem to have anyone here who is familiar with the ability of space. How are you going to stop me? Naruto was stunned. Yes, Sasuke is on strike. He can't stop this guy alone. Tonari continued. I'm not here to fight with you. If you want to fight, leave it for the final battle. Moreover, the Ninja Alliance is not as calm as before you left. Naruto was shocked and hurriedly asked, what do you mean? However, Tonari no longer spoke and left with the monsters. Bastard. I hate people who only say half of their words. Naruto said angrily. Nagato said, not calm doesn't mean there's a riot. It may be a celebration. After all, with Garashi in charge, it's hard for anything to happen. Naruto nodded vigorously. It must be like this. At this moment, three figures suddenly appeared in everyone's sight, accompanied by someone's familiar voice. This time, I brought Niji and bordered soil from Shikatsu Forest. Even if you defy me. Hey! Where are they? Naruto was speechless. You really know how to time it. They just left, and you came. Sasuke decisively threw the blame. How can you let them go? What can I do? Naruto complained. Tonari came to save them. You have the ability of space, and you're not here. How can I stop you? Sasuke froze and coughed twice. It's all that snake's fault. Niji's eyes widened. Was he the only one who didn't participate in any battle? After returning to the Alliance, Woodleaf Town was in chaos. However, this chaos was somewhat different from what everyone imagined. It wasn't smashing and looting, it was chaos. Catch him, don't let him run away. Wear gloves, be careful they bite you. Woof. Woof. Danzo-senpai, don't pee on the telephone pole. In the streets, from time to time, people ran wildly on all fours, cats walked upright on two legs, and even rotten zombies wandered on the streets. This bizarre scene made them confused. Was it because they didn't do it the right way? At this moment, a weak voice came from beside them. You're back. Naruto turned his head and was startled by the state of Hagoromo-senpai. Hagoromo-senpai's shadow faded a lot, as if he was going to disappear completely in the next moment. Naruto asked worriedly. Grandpa Hagoromo, what happened to you? Hagoromo shook his head slightly. I'm just a little injured. Even you were injured. Madara squinted his eyes. What happened while we were away? Hagoromo sighed. Simply put, Otsutsuki Ichiki and Otsutsuki Momoshiki took the underworld from me. In the process of fighting, the underworld experienced violent turbulence. Some souls escaped from the underworld and entered the rotten corpses. Some souls were disturbed by this and exchanged with the surrounding animals. Then, it became what you see now. Chapter 618. Hearing Rikudo's explanation, everyone was stunned. This development was really unexpected. Sasuke asked in a deep voice. If it was Shell's people, Sensei shouldn't have just stood by. Did Shell's people intervene? Rikudo's expression was solemn. Aizen stopped the leader for a while. By the time he left, it had already happened. Naruto's face was full of self-blame. If it weren't for our potential, you wouldn't have been taken away from the underworld. Rikudo sighed in his heart. Although he wasn't the opponent of Ichiki and Momoshiki, if it weren't for the eternal truth-seeking ball that Garashi brought to the parallel world, and Naruto and Sasuke, he wouldn't have been defeated so quickly. Of course, he didn't need to say it out loud. Rikudo shook his head and said. It's my fault for losing the Pure Land. How can I push the blame onto you? Moreover, it's already happened. It doesn't make sense to talk about it. Let's stabilize the situation as soon as possible. Yes, the situation is indeed a bit troublesome. Naruto nodded in distress. Then, he heard a voice from before again. Former Elder Danzo, Danzo. Yes, woof woof, come out. Danzo? Naruto muttered. I heard from Dad that this guy seems to have persecuted him and Sensei before. He seems to be a bad guy. No, he's scum. Niji recalled the scene of his father being forced when he was a child and gritted his teeth. Still feeling unreconciled, Niji jumped to the side of the roof and opened his Byakugan. After searching for a while, he finally caught Danzo and brought him back. After finding Danzo, a nurse thanked him profusely. Thank you so much for helping me find him. Hey, you're leader's disciple, right? I seem to have seen you at the world's first ninja conference. Niji smiled. Yes, don't talk, let me guess. The nurse said excitedly. You must be Naruto, right? Niji's mouth twitched slightly. No, I'm not. Oh, then you're Sasuke-sama. My name is Hyuga Niji, Hyuga Niji. Look at my Byakugan, I'm from the Hyuga clan. Hearing Ning-ji's hysterical roar, the nurse smiled embarrassedly. I was so excited that I forgot. By the way, what was your ranking in the competition? The anger on Niji's face suddenly froze, and he coughed twice. That's not important, right? Didn't this guy collude with the Akatsuki organization? Why didn't you execute him? Speaking of Danzo, the other party's attention was diverted. Who told him to be Naruto? Because the soul inside Danzo's body was that of a dog, the nurse had no intention of hiding it for him. For the sake of Naruto's reputation, his matter can only be dealt with in a low-key manner. However, the ending of being mentally ill is a very cruel punishment for someone like him. Ning-ji snorted coldly. He got off easy. Take him back to the hospital first. When we find his soul, at this time, Six Paths suddenly said, are you saying that his soul has been transferred? That's not right. His soul is very stable. It's a human soul. Everyone was shocked when they heard what the Six Paths said. If this guy is Danzo, doesn't that mean? The nurse was horrified at first, but she quickly reacted. But he just peed on the pole, and he didn't vomit when he heard the name Naruto. Sasuke suddenly said, his body is trembling slightly, which means that he's not unresponsive, but he's restraining his physiological reaction. The nurse suddenly understood. Yes, with the former elder Danzo's ability, he could have done a lot of things in 8 years. Naruto tentatively shouted, Naruto, Naruto, fire. Sure enough, Danzo's body trembled more and more. Finally, he couldn't pretend to be stupid and shouted loudly. Enough. Shut up. Everyone was really sure that he was Danzo himself. After confirming this, they couldn't help but be shocked. In order to escape, this guy pretended to be possessed by a dog and peed on a pole on the street. How cruel. Are all the older generation ninjas this cruel? Danzo's eyes were gloomy. Not to mention that his chakra was sealed, even if it wasn't, he wouldn't be able to defeat these people. So, he said, just you wait, I'll be back, and I'll change Shimizu Garashi's mistake. Niji couldn't listen anymore. Mistake? You traitor, you really have the face to say that. It's because of Sensei that the alliance can develop to this point today. Alliance, 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 what about Woodleaf? Danzo said bitterly. It's called an alliance, but in fact, all the ninja villages have perished. Isn't that good? Naruto said. The whole world became a family. There was no war, no pain, and everyone could live in peace every day. Of course not. Danzo clenched his fist. Forgetting history is tantamount to betrayal. The other ninja villages killed so many of Woodleaf's people. Why should we share peace with them? Shimizu Garashi should have enslaved all of them, leaving only Woodleaf. Everyone frowned. They didn't understand the hatred of the previous generation, so this question was really difficult to answer. At this moment, a sigh came from a distance. At this time, are you still lying to yourself? Danzo. Hearing this familiar voice, Danzo turned his head. Hiruzen, what do you mean? Hiruzen said in a deep voice. You always talk about Woodleaf, but do you really care about Woodleaf? Without waiting for Danzo to refute, Kuroto continued. Maybe you did have such an idea, but gradually, you used for Konoha as an excuse to hypnotize yourself, and it seemed that no matter what you did, you could always use this excuse to excuse yourself. But if you really do it for Woodleaf, you should be able to face up to what Garashi did for Woodleaf. You can ask anyone in Woodleaf, do they like the current Woodleaf, or do they want to return to the past Woodleaf? Because of the noise made by these people, many people have crowded around. Return to the past, what's so good about the past? I still like the present life. Yes. Konoha suffered the pain, but it also inflicted pain. According to what he said, in this world, only the people of those small countries are clean. Hearing the discussion around him, Danzo was silent. You don't dare to ask because you know the answer in your heart, right? Hiruzen said in a deep voice. Garashi brought changes to Woodleaf and the world. Of course, it's not a mistake, it's a miracle. This miracle is the light of a hero. Hearing Sandame's words, Naruto and Sasuke subconsciously thought of the parallel world, then nodded vigorously. Sensei is a hero. Chapter 619. The crowd didn't think that Sandame Naruto was flattering him. To most of them, the word hero was far from enough to commend their leader's achievements. Changing the world, revolutionizing the mountains and rivers, this was the change that man made to the world. The Sandame sighed and said as if he was comforting a child, "Don't make trouble, the leader is thinking that you have indeed done something for Konoha. Because of mercy, he spared your life. If you continue to make trouble," Danzo, who had been silent, became excited after hearing this. "I don't need this kind of weak mercy. If he kills me, I'll think highly of him. Mercy to the enemy will only turn into hatred and revenge." At this time, a gentle and calm voice came from the distance. "Danzo-san, you may have misunderstood. In my eyes, you're not as strong as the enemy." Hearing this voice, Danzo's face turned red with shame. "What did you say? I once defeated you. Hey, bastard, listen to me." However, Garashi didn't even look at him. After saying this, he left with Rikudo and the others. This arrogant attitude made Danzo roar. "Shimizu Garashi, you'll regret this." Back in the central building, Naruto couldn't wait to ask. "Sensei, what should we do now? Everyone's souls have been exchanged." Garashi shook his head gently. "Don't worry. I've marked them with Skynet. Soon, the souls will be exchanged back one by one." "Oh, is that so?" Naruto suddenly said. Rikudo also breathed a sigh of relief. The guilt in his heart lessened a lot. "That's great." Garashi asked. "What's the situation with the three holy lands?" Sasuke first explained the previous battle, then added. "Mount Myaboku and Shikatsu Forest are willing to join the war and contribute to the alliance." Garashi rubbed his chin. "First, they attacked the underworld. Then, they unsealed the old masters. It seems that the two Otsutsuki are very smart." Niji was worried. "Sensei, what if Hollow and Shell cooperate and attack us first? How should we deal with the attack of the two organizations?" Sasuke muttered, "The reason why the two organizations are cooperating is because we are the strongest. If we pretend that we are no match for them and retreat in defeat, maybe we can break up their cooperation?" "Pretending to be defeated?" Naruto questioned. "Isn't it easy to be seen through in a war?" "Yes." Sasuke nodded. "So, we need a real fiasco. If you want to deceive the enemy, you have to deceive yourself first." Naruto looked straight into Sasuke's eyes. "Does the fiasco also include sacrifice? You want everyone to throw their lives away for a possibility?" Sasuke was silent for a moment. "Sometimes, sacrifice is necessary. Besides, as long as Sensei can win the final victory, the dead can eventually be resurrected. Say no more." Garashi knocked on the table. "You can fool the two Otsutsuki, but do you think it's possible to fool Aizen? After all, the biggest traitor was himself." Sasuke froze for a moment. Thinking of the other party's style, he couldn't help but say with a wry smile, "I thought too simply of war. In the final battle, all strategies will be difficult to work. The only thing left is a competition of comprehensive strength." Garashi looked at Rikudo. 3 years ago, I sealed Otsutsuki Urushiki. Sensei, use his remains to restore your strength." Although Rikudo didn't like Otsutsuki's bad habits, he also knew that now wasn't the time to be pretentious. He nodded slightly. "I will restore my strength as soon as possible. As for you..." Garashi looked at the few people who were eager to try. "Next, I will borrow your brain through the dream world, and even the world's computational power to help me enter the field of Kekkai Genkai." Over the years, he used the dream world to arrange research and development tasks, brainstorming, and finally deduced the fusion of chakra to the 5 elements into one, yin and yang into one, leaving only the final step of omniscient Banzho. You're not a Kekii Genkai? Rikudo was shocked. If he wasn't a Kekii Genkai, how could he beat those Otsutsuki? Is this reasonable? Garashi smiled helplessly. I never said I was. His strength was based on the comprehensive strength of the 4 major systems. He was indeed not a match for those 2 Otsutsuki in the field of chakra alone. It seems so. Rikudo nodded as if he was infected by Naruto. Because Garashi's strength was so strong that Rikudo forgot that the man in front of him hadn't even stepped into the final field. What's so surprising about this? Madara despised Rikudo. Isn't his fire release stronger than most people's Kekii Genkai? The power of a technique depends on the ability of the user after all. By the way, what is Kekii Genkai? Rikudo continued. Although I know Kekii Genkai, that's the ability given by the bloodline. Without the bloodline, I can at most achieve the fusion of the 5 elements. Rikudo's expression became solemn. If you can rely on yourself to take this step, the Kekii Genkai you achieve will definitely be stronger than most of the Otsutsuki. This is just like the medical ninjutsu sealed in the medical scroll. Naturally, it's not as flexible as the medical ninjutsu used by the user himself. Of course, it's not absolute. Just like ordinary medical ninjutsu, no matter how flexible their medical ninjutsu is, it can't be compared to the medical ninjutsu sealed by Garashi. The strongest Kekii Genkai closest to the bloodline source and hosted in the eyes of the reincarnation won't be worse than Garashi's Kekii Genkai. Don't rely on yourself, but on everyone. Garashi shook his head slightly. My wisdom alone can't take that step. Compared to Rikudo's solemn expression, Naruto and the other 2 were excited. Great, can we help Sensei too? I will do my best. Just like children who are happy to help their parents, they are also excited to help their sensei. Garashi smiled. Don't be so serious. While borrowing the calculation power of my brain, I will also pass on my own cultivation insights to everyone. You have to seize this opportunity to improve your strength. Sasuke said thoughtfully. Sensei, while borrowing the calculation power of our brain, you also let us understand a higher level of ability. Garashi said seriously. This is a very rare opportunity. If it weren't for the upcoming war, I wouldn't have consumed the potential of the dream world and overloaded it. After that, Garashi added in his heart. At the same time, it's also to prevent me from being blown up by chakra. Not to mention the chakra on this planet, there are 8 Otsutsuki, Kinshiki, Uraiji, Mamashiki, Ichiki, Tonari, Hamura, Hagoromo, and Kagaya. Except for the first 2, everyone's strength is no weaker than a high-level warrior of Otsutsuki. With such a huge amount of chakra gathered together, Garashi suspects that he may be blown up. Even if he has the other 3 systems to maintain the balance, and this time, he has gathered all the ancient rulers of the ninja world, the balance will most likely not be maintained. After all, one Otsutsuki can suppress the so-called old rulers. With so many Otsutsuki, the energy gathered may even surpass the stars in the starry sky. In order to ensure that he can get the greatest improvement, and at the same time not to kill himself, he needs to prepare for the distribution of chakra in advance. This is an exercise to establish a deeper connection through the dream world. Chapter 620. When Garashi was about to take the last step, on Sky Castle, a group of people gathered in front of the great Tensigen. Looking at the huge Tensigen in front of her, Karen tilted her head. I didn't expect those bastards to return the great Tensigen to us. Tonari chuckled softly. The great Tensigen is a source of pollution for them. They can't wait to give it away. Then why didn't they destroy it or throw it away? Could it be a trap? Raiga asked cautiously. The great Tensigen is on the same level as them. To destroy it, they must do their best and pay a heavy price. Of course, they don't want to sacrifice it for others. After a pause, Tonari continued, as for throwing it away. They saw my connection with the Great Tensigen at the conference. They should understand that no matter where the Great Tensigen is, I can find it. Then why not throw it in the couplet? Raiga knew he asked a stupid question as soon as he said it. Although the Great Tensigen was a hot potato, it also had its value. Didn't the Shell organization use it to make a deal with them? Throwing the Great Tensigen to the Alliance was the basis for their cooperation. Actually, there is one more thing. Aizen suddenly said, Otsutsuki Ichiki can no longer hide the Great Tensigen in the Dojitsu space because he is about to be reincarnated. Reincarnation? Tonari wasn't surprised that Aizen knew about the Shell organization. After all, he already guessed where his childhood friend went. Tonari asked, then who did he choose as the vessel? Aizen said calmly, Kimimaro. Kimimaro? Tonari was a little surprised. He thought it would be Yugo. Aizen twisted his fingers. Kagaya Otsutsuki is sealed on the moon, and Kimimaro's bloodline has some connection with Kagaya. Maybe he intends to start from there. Karen was a little worried. Kimimaro won't be discovered by them, or his will be completely eroded, right? Aizen chuckled softly, don't worry, with their attainments in the soul, it's impossible for them to discover my arrangement. As for Kimimaro, I believe his will never disappear. Seeing Karen was still nervous, Aizen smiled and shook his head, then I will reveal a little more. The reincarnation ceremony won't go so smoothly. Reincarnation ceremony? Is it because of Momoshiki Otsutsuki? Tonari was shocked. Is it because of the last meeting? Aizen nodded. Although I can't directly influence their thinking, I can still influence their hearing. Karen said excitedly, the two Otsutsuki will kill each other, and Kimimaro will take advantage of the situation? It's not easy to be a fisherman. Aizen shook his head slightly. Kimimaro is too weak compared to them. He's not even qualified to take advantage of the situation. However, I didn't expect him to take them down directly. I just wanted to plant a seed. Karen nodded as if she understood. Leah and the others were shocked. What did they just hear? Lord Aizen had been plotting against the Shell organization for many years, and even planned to pluck the peaches. Such abilities and methods were truly awe-inspiring. Other than being shocked, they were more excited. The Shell organization was already in Aizen's hands. Was there even a need to talk about the outcome of the war? It was a sure win. Then, Aizen looked at Tonari. Absorb the chakra in the Great Reincarnation Eye. Should I absorb it all? Tonari was hesitant. He wasn't afraid of the demon's power. He was able to surpass Momoshiki Otsutsuki because of his bloodline and the demon system. Of course, he wasn't afraid of the demon. What he was worried about was that this would cause Himura's consciousness to disappear. Aizen naturally saw his worry and said, don't worry, I will protect your ancestor's consciousness. In fact, he couldn't transcend because of his entanglement with the demon's consciousness. After you absorb his power, you can free him from this endless struggle. Hearing Aizen's words, Tonari was relieved to absorb his ancestor's power. Seeing that Tonari, who was a rich second generation, found the inheritance left by his ancestor, Kakuzu said with envy. If only we could have Otsutsuki's power. Hearing this, Leah suddenly thought of a rumor and asked. Lord Aizen, I heard that you asked Dr. A to study Otsutsuki's bloodline transplant? Aizen nodded. Yes, there is such a thing. Leah was excited. Was the research successful? Not only him, everyone was quietly listening. It's okay if they didn't know, but if they knew, they would be envious of Otsutsuki's bloodline. Not to mention other things, the lifespan alone was enough to make them drool. However, Aizen sighed. It failed. He had to admit that his idea of mass-producing Otsutsuki through bloodline transplantation was a bit naive. The fundamental factor that restricted this idea wasn't ability, but chakra. Ordinary ninjas' chakra comes from their own refining, but Otsutsuki's chakra comes from the absorption of heaven and earth. This is the reason why their chakra is millions of times stronger than ordinary ninjas. At the same time, it's also the main reason why Otsutsuki's members are so few. With the current concentration of chakra in the shinobi world, even if Otsutsuki's bloodline is transplanted, it's impossible to awaken unless one can find a place with a high concentration of chakra. Listening to Aizen's explanation, Leah couldn't believe it. Wait, isn't chakra refined from physical and spiritual energy? How can there be chakra in nature? Aizen asked with a smile, have you ever wondered where the chakra you used to use ninjutsu went? Ah, this. Leah opened his mouth wide and asked carefully. Is it natural? Chakra can be absorbed by Otsutsuki, but rocks can't. This shows that there is an essential difference between the two. Aizen continued. To be precise, except for a few ninjutsu, most ninjutsu will eventually dissipate into chakra, and this chakra will remain in the shinobi world. Kisame's expression changed slightly. Aizen, Sama, I heard that Otsutsuki's lifespan is 1,000 years. Is it to wait for the chakra to accumulate to a certain level before harvesting? He used to think it was strange. If the Otsutsuki's purpose was to absorb a little bit of chakra from the human body, why would it take 1,000 years? Harvesting once every 60 years should be enough. After all, 60 years is enough for a generation to change. But if it was absorbed with the chakra that had been produced and discharged into nature over 1,000 years by more than a dozen generations, then it could be completely explained. Aizen nodded. This is the answer I've found over the years. Too hateful. I will absorb all the chakra I've used, I won't give it to them. Karen said angrily. Then she asked curiously, if we can absorb all the chakra we've used, won't we become a perpetual motion machine? Aizen shook his head slightly. Chakra becomes ninjutsu, ninjutsu becomes chakra, and ninjutsu becomes chakra. In fact, there is a key question. I don't know if you've thought about it, but chakra can be refined and used instantly. It can't be stored in the human body. Why would Otsutsuki spend so much effort to collect chakra? Karen's eyes lit up. I remember, the woman I fought against at the world's first ninja tournament, Tsunade. She used a method to store chakra. If she can do it, then Otsutsuki must be able to do it too. Aizen nodded. To be precise, only people at the level of Kekkei Genkai can store chakra. Therefore, Otsutsuki isn't worried that the chakra seeds will give birth to a resistance against them. After all, the stronger the ninja, the faster they die. Karen froze for a moment. The stronger the ninja, the faster they die? Aizen nodded and sighed. The reason why most ninjas have short lives is because we need to consume physical and mental energy to refine chakra. Otsutsuki's lifespan is easily measured in thousands of years because they can use chakra to replenish their physical and mental energy. In a sense, the reason why Sasuke and Naruto in the parallel world were so weak in the future was because the six paths forcibly increased their strength and squeezed too much of their life energy. So that's how it is. Karen was in a trance. Only powerful ninjas can touch the truth, but the stronger they are, the closer they are to death. No one can cross this boundary unless they're a legend like Sensei or the leader of the alliance. Kakuzu suddenly understood. No wonder a powerful ninja like Hashirama died so early. It turns out that he fought too much with me and Madara. Sasori, who had been silent, couldn't help but ask. I still don't understand. Since Otsutsuki's purpose is to absorb chakra scattered in nature, why do they want to exterminate humans? A generation of chakra compared to 1,000 years of chakra, shouldn't it be insignificant? Aizen said faintly. They don't care about chakra, but what about the god tree? Otsutsuki takes the fruit of the god tree, and we use it as nourishment. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.